This meeting is being recorded.
Confirming today's attendees for panelists.
D Street Northeast. Cobb been waiting the longest. She's been waiting 55 minutes to assist with Chloe.
See Commissioner Black now.
Five zero seven two.
Okay, buenas noches, everyone, and welcome to our May 22 meeting of ANC 5D. We're just letting people trickle in, get situated, get their audio situated, and updating people to panelists.
Five D Watch Commander Lieutenant Hakir speaking. How may I help you?
Okay, we're going to start in the next minute. Still see some more people trickling in. If you are going to be presenting tonight, and if you haven't been upgraded to panelists, please raise your hand so I know that you will be presenting. Okay, we're still getting a little situated. Friendly reminder that this commission has been holding meetings remotely since via Zoom since the beginning of the pandemic, and we're getting closer to transitioning into in-person meetings. Just another reminder, tonight we'll be using the Q&A function to ask and answer any questions, while the chat feature is also available to share any basic information to attendees. Okay. Sorry, promote the panelists. Okie dokes, I think we're all situated now. Again, thank you for everyone joining us this evening. While our chair, Commissioner Sadell Moore, is not currently available, I'll be taking over the meeting for right now as the vice chair, and I'll begin with our roll call. So with that being said, 5D01.
Sorry, present.
Thank you. 5D02 is myself, present. 5D03.
Present.
5D04.
Present.
5D05. And that's Commissioner Sadell Moore. She'll make herself available later tonight. 5D06.
Present.
And 5D07.
Present.
Okay, thank you, commissioners. We do have a quorum for tonight's meeting. Next up on the agenda I would like to, one, adopt the agenda as amended. We do have some slight changes from the agenda that we shared with the public as of last week. I see that we have added 2 presentations to the agenda as well as 3 voting items. One was originally requested as a presentation. Commissioners, are there any other additions or additional changes to the agenda? Okay, with that being said, I move that we accept the agenda as presented with the mentioned additions. Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, the ayes have it. Moving forward with the agenda, the adoption of the minutes. Right on that link on the agenda, you can see access to last month's minutes. I move that that we adopt last month's agenda minutes as shared via the link available on tonight's agenda. Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, cool. The ayes have it. Next, we have the treasurer's report. Commissioner Cobb, the floor is yours.
Okay, for April 2022, we had an opening balance of $56,487.32. We had one expense of $6,739.01, and that was for our Abra lawyers, which gave us a closing balance of $49,748.31.
Okay. Any questions from the commission on the treasurer's report? Any questions from the public? Okay, it looks like there's one question, but that's for later for our public safety report. Okay, perfect. So next on our agenda, we have, one second. I'm sorry, I need to add someone here. Okay, next on our agenda, we have standing presentations as usual, but a slight change in how to go about them tonight. We know that a lot of us that attend these public meetings tend not to be able to make it to the very end, just with commitments throughout the night and what have you. So we moved something around so we can get a little bit more information to the area in 5D. So with that being said, we're going to be starting with Commissioner Smd reports. So moving forward, we'll have these Smd reports. And with that being said, I'd like to start with a report from 5D01.
Thank you, Commissioner Salcedo Guzman. At this time, we are focusing on getting illegal trash picked up, illegal dumping, the trash from illegal dumping picked up. We also, the gates at the Lewis Crow Park has been locked. I have reached out to DCHA and McDuffie's office. They have one gate unlocked, but both sides need to be unlocked so the residents can go through to catch the bus and get their children to school. So I did raise this issue and we're working on that. Also, we had a community walk with the EPA and DOEE last week in reference to the chemical plant that's at 1950 Capitol Avenue. We did partner with, we had Tommy Wells and some other folks from EPA and DOEE, and we had an Acclima car out here, and they rode around, saw that Ivy City is in the red as being very polluted. So when we get those results back of all the tests that were done, I should be able to share those for next month's meeting.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
Okay, and then 5D02 again is me. So a lot was going on in 5D02. Last month on May 20th, Mount Olivet was visited by Mayor Bowser and her team of agency directors and offices. The mayor was able to come and meet residents directly on the ground on some issues that have been plaguing the community for some time. We addressed the issues of recent drug overdoses, homelessness, gun violence, sex trafficking, trash litter, illegal dumping. It was a lot. We addressed a lot of things while she was here. She was here for about 3 hours. So it was a great walk. Together with the mayor's office, we are getting one thing that I'm pretty happy about. We're getting one thing, which is monthly alley cleanings for this summer, which is 5 of our alleys. So Miggs Place Northeast, 16th Street Northeast, Queen Street Northeast, Montello Avenue, and West Virginia Avenue. There's specific alleys in these locations that are notorious for a lot of illegal dumping and just litter and trash. And they'll be getting monthly cleanings from DPW. So we're going to be working on that project this summer. Also, with assistance from some of the mayor's offices, we are getting aid to our local boxing gym over on Mount Olivet Road and Montello Avenue. So that's great. As well as we're working with our local nonprofit, Saving Our Next Generation. They're the individuals that clean up the commercial areas off of Mount Olivet. So we will be working with them, trying to see if we can expand some of their work that they're already doing there, because they're doing a great job. But as we know, a lot of areas in 5D, specifically South Ward 5, there's a lot of trash and litter issues all around. Juneteenth, which is June 19th, for those that are not familiar with the holiday, we will be celebrating at Jabo's Compact Market. So we're planning an event that day, so look out for more information on that. And just friendly reminders of some stuff that are important to 5D02. I ask all residents across 5D to join and attend the 5th District's Citizens Advisory Council meetings. Those are the 4th Thursdays of each month. I think they're highly important. Last meeting, we had some Ivy City residents come out and discuss some issues that they're having on their blocks. So that was great that they were able to directly speak with the chair and the commander that attends these meetings. Another just quick plug, the Mount Olivet Civic Association that we've been talking about for a few months. Our first meeting will be June 22nd. So that again is in collaboration with Northern Trinidad and Ivy City, right in Mount Olivet. And again, that first meeting will be June 22nd. So look out for more information on that. And just some old matters with, I know I have a lot, sorry. Some old matters with 5D02, just following up on that ABRA protest that we talked about the last public meeting at 1601 Montello Avenue. It's actually no longer moving forward because the owners have rescinded the application. It just looks like they didn't really want to engage the community to explain whether a liquor store should be 2 doors down from a daycare center. So I'm happy they decided to do that, because it was just going to be a big situation that we were willing to fight. And just some open-ended projects with DDOT, speed humps for Miggs Place, Holbrook Terrace, Holbrook Street, and 11th Place. Those requests are almost coming towards their end of their 30-day mark after so many days of having DDOT to review them. So we're coming towards a point where they're no longer going to be pending, but reviewed and finalized to see if we can implement something in the fall. And then just tying off with those DDOT projects, we will be moving forward to submit a request to have a traffic study done at Holbrook Street, which is in need of one outside of the speed hump request that we put in. So I'll allow anyone for community feedback and questions at the end of tonight's meeting as proposed on the agenda. But if there's anything else, feel free to drop a question directly to me or put it in the Q&A. So 5D03.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Latoya Moore, Commissioner for 5D03. I have 2 announcements this week. The first being, I've been in collaboration with Kenya McDuffie's office, DC Councilmember McDuffie's office, as well as DPW sweep inspectors. And they've done a sweep in our neighborhood because, as you know, I've previously announced that we have not had street cleaning since it commenced March of 2022. But we found out that cars are still not being moved. We still have an ample amount of residents who are not going into the office every day, and they obviously don't have anywhere to park. We've tried, but there was 156 cars last Wednesday and last Thursday that had not been moved. So the dump trucks and the cleaning trucks for DPW could not navigate those cars because there were 2 and 3 parked together at one time instead of having huge spaces. So for my constituents in 5D03 that runs from Maryland Avenue, 21st Street, 17th Street, M Street, L Street, Lang, and Lyman, please be very, very cautious this week and next week because they will be ticketing because we need those cars moved in order for the street cleaning can be done. So please, 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 I'm asking, do not call me and complain or sending me emails to complain because the issue needs to be addressed, that the cars need to be moved in order for the streets to be cleaned. My second one is the open space at 19th and L. I am in collaboration with Nokomis Hunter and the Deputy Mayor's Office. We're having a hard time figuring out which agency owns that land in order for us to turn it into a green space, because that is our alternative goal or ultimate goal, to turn it into a park, a green space, or a dog park for residents this summer. So I am vigilantly working on that area. Trying to find out, one, who's the owner, and two, how fast can DPR, Parks and Recreation, move to transition that space into something that is usable and reliable for us in this area. I'm still working frankly on other projects, but I'll save that for our next meeting. But those are the two that are on the radar for right now. Thank you.
Great. 5D04.
Good evening, everyone. I am Commissioner Bernice Blacknell for 5D04. I have an update on Spingarn. Spingarn was vandalized because the contractors are working inside of Spingarn, and I was not informed about this. So yes, the kids did go inside of Spingarn and vandalize it and everything, due to the fact that the contractors that were going in there working did not lock the door. Since then, I have been communicating with one of the directors for the Department of General Service, which they have been keeping me updated on what's going on with Spingarn since the fire and everything, and that they assured me that they will make sure Spingarn is secured and that they will be working on other security measurements to make sure. But besides that, I would like everybody, if you see children inside of Spingarn, please call the police, because the Department of General Service promised me that they will make sure when they go in there to do the work inside of Spingarn, that they will make sure that the doors and the windows are secured.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. 5D05, again, the chairwoman, Commissioner Moore, is not present at the moment, so we'll go to 5D06.
Hello, everybody. Commissioner Hoffman, 5D06. I think the biggest update for me, we have been coordinating with MPD and specifically focusing on the intersections of Morse and Florida and Owen and Neal. And I think it's been very clear that MPD has increased their presence there. There's been definitely less activity in both of those intersections. I've been traveling around every night after work, specifically kind of in the early hours in the morning to try to gauge, what the activity levels are. And they've definitely gone down, which is great. But we also have to make sure that we're not just moving that activity somewhere else and then it becoming a different problem. So MPD has been really responsive. We really appreciate their support and their assistance. And I plan on keeping in touch with them as things go on. But it's so far so good. But the summer's coming up soon, so we'll see how that goes.
Thank you, Commissioner. And 5D07.
Great, thanks, Commissioner Stephen Cobb, 5D07. I just have two items. First, as I've mentioned before, the Pepco substation between Trinidad Avenue, Owen Place, and Penn Street is being demolished. Pepco is selecting a contractor this week, and then they will schedule a site visit where I'll walk around with them. And they will provide notice to nearby neighbors whenever that meeting takes place. Also, they are open to fielding ideas from the public about what should be done with the space. Right now, they're just going to make it a green space and put a new fence around it, and then hopefully sell it. I know a lot of people have been told me the idea of selling it to the district government and turning it into a dog park or some other kind of community green space. I'm going to put the Pepco point of contact's info in the chat. Please email him if you have any ideas or thoughts about what should happen to the site, and CC me at 5d07@anc.dc.gov. Second, for the ongoing Bladensburg Road study, the first public meeting is on Thursday, June 2nd. And there's one session from 6 to 7 and another from 7 to 8. If you need that information, I believe it's online, but also you can just reach out to me and I will provide it as well. It's an online meeting.
Thank you, Commissioner. So with that being said, we'll move to any direct questions for those matters for commissioners towards the end of our meeting. And we'll move forward with our public safety report with Lieutenant Zenobia Hakir. Does she have to leave? Oh no. Lieutenant, are you still there? I know you said you might have to step out.
Yeah, I'm still here. I'm still here. I'm sorry, but I'm sorry. I'm the watch commander, so I have like a lot of moving parts going on. But I was listening to everything the ANCs have been working on, and I will say that Warren and Neil, I mean, we definitely got a lot of feedback from the community in reference to all the hanging out and the people just kind of loitering in that area. We don't have a loitering law, but what I've been doing every day that I'm the watch commander, and we've been kind of spreading the word. What's been working in our favor is that we have officers who have been assigned to civil disturbance units because of the whole Roe versus Wade draft dissent leak. So we have all these officers who are standing by waiting for protests, but we are allowed to use those officers if there's nothing happening as it relates to protests to do things for us in the district. So what we've been doing is putting officers at Owen and Neal, putting officers in other places in Trinidad and Ivy City and Benning Road. So that has really been helping us out, being able to use those officers who are, like I said, slated for civil disturbance type of things to our disposal during our shifts. And they've been working all 3 shifts. So that's why you all have been seeing a real big uptick in, police presence in various different neighborhoods. So I'm glad you all are noticing it. We are trying our best to do that. I need you guys to give me just one moment. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
1 second.
I'll answer one of the questions in the Q&A from Miss, I'm sorry if I mispronounce your name. People mispronounce mine all the time, so I want to make sure I get people's right. But Miss Donite, other than the trash pickup, are there any other promises or tactical efforts that came from the mayor's office visit, particularly around crime? There's been a lot of activity on ROM. That was addressed by MPD directly. Again, residents such as yourself, I recommend joining the CAC meetings. I dropped the link in the chat. MPD was very clear, and maybe the lieutenant, you can touch on this. There is stuff going on that we do not see. There's a lot of stuff that a lot of, what's the word I'm looking for? A lot of tactical efforts being made and implemented that we're just not aware of. So Lieutenant, maybe you can pick up on that.
Okay, so I'm sorry because the watch commander phone rang. I didn't get to listen to the entire question. Was this for what are the other promises or tactical efforts that came from mayor's visit, particularly around? Oh yeah, so we have, besides patrol, so we're using patrol as a way to try and prevent crime And obviously, if something happens that we can make an arrest on, then we're also doing that in patrol. But we also have other specialized units that have been going to these various different areas, especially since we had all of those overdoses, doing stuff with like undercover work as it relates to buying drugs, getting guns off the streets. We've had search warrants in the Trinidad area recently that uncovered weapons, lots of drugs. We have officers that are out actively engaging the community in these hotspot areas by doing traffic stops if they see traffic infractions, stopping people and, identifying people who could be contributing to some of these issues. So we're really working on it. And I'll tell you, our crime is down from this last 30 days last year. So last year, in the month of April, our crime is down significantly this year from last year. So I do think, like I said, having that extra manpower is helping. I put my email in the chat. I've met many of you since I started doing these ANC meetings. Many people have emailed me. I've done one-on-ones with people in the community via Zoom. And any suggestions you have or anything you might want to bring to our attention, we're definitely open to it. And if I can do anything to help or make it better, I definitely will. So you can shoot me an email, and I work every day. Usually I'm the watch commander during the evening tour, except for like Fridays and Saturdays.
Thank you, Lieutenant.
Okay.
Were there any questions from the commissioners?
It's Latoya. I don't have a question, but I do want to just commend you guys. My husband and I have been talking. We are native Washingtonians. My entire family is here. And I would say in the last maybe 60 days, even the crime that we've seen on local news, we've seen you apprehending these subjects. So we just noticed, I'm gonna speak for myself as a resident here. We've noticed all across the district how even though these crimes are being committed, because we can't stop a crime from being committed, but the fact that you guys have been diligent in capturing these criminals and apprehending them. I don't know if it's people calling in, helping you guys out, or whatever the case may be, but we do appreciate it as district residents, because I've noticed that, crimes are not going that unsolved anymore. Things are being solved and resolutions are being had. Thank you.
Thank you. I know somebody had a question. Thank you. And thank you for that. I would say this. A lot of citizens, it goes both ways. There's some citizens that like the work that we do and recognize the effort. And there's some citizens who are not very happy and maybe for even good reason. It kind of is what it is. But despite that, I will say that the officers in the 5th district, they come to work every day. They work as hard as they can. And I saw somebody had a question about the officer involved shooting. Mm-hmm. So I'll just go ahead and address it. I was the watch commander, so I was here when it happened, but we had officers who, these are 2 of the officers that I have basically put them on the Benning Road corridor to address issues. That 1800 block of Benning Road, like 19th and Benning, where people hang out at, to go over there. If you see something, do something. If you can make an arrest for a quality of life issue, go ahead and do it. That's what they've been instructed to do. They did a traffic stop yesterday and noticed that the passenger had a gun. He was trying to conceal it, but wasn't really doing a good job of concealing it. And that passenger got out of the vehicle and ran. And my officers pursued him on foot. And they saw the gun. They saw him running with the gun. And one of the officers ended up firing his service weapon. But thank God, luckily, the person that he was firing his weapon at was not hit. All the bullets missed him. It was his lucky day, but he did get arrested. We did get the gun, and we got some other things from him as well, as it related to him being placed under arrest. So they're risking their lives, and they're still doing it every day. And I tell them every day, because I live in Ward 5. I appreciate the work that they do as a Ward 5 resident myself. So yeah, thank you.
Commissioner Rhodes, you had a question?
Yes, Lieutenant Zenobia. At Union Market, we're realizing that there's a lot of kids from KIP that are going out there. There was a shooting of one of the students from KIP. Someone try to steal his tennis shoes or something, but is the Safe Passage organization, are they getting any support from the 5th District police officers? Because I believe they're a little short-handed.
You know what? KIP is doing all they can. KIP hired 3 MP officers to assist with Safe Passage. We have school resource officers that are assigned to the 5th District that assist with Safe Passage on top of that. And then patrol officers, if we get any information from school resource or the officers that are working there part-time, that there's an actual problem, like a beef, people fighting,
Right.
we are going over there and trying to prevent whatever might happen. Today at McKinley Tech, I got information that there was multiple fights today at the school and that it was unusual and that they were anticipating additional fights after school. We sent one of the CDU squads over there to have presence to prevent it. So whenever KIP is having an issue, we do what we can, but the children, you know, they know how to kind of skirt, you know, the police. It's, I mean, I was a kid in the city too, so I get it.
I do too.
But I do all the
Yeah.
And it's our goal to prevent it. I mean, nobody wants to see a kid get beat up, robbed, shot, or anything. I mean, nobody wants that. So the minute we find out there's something, we allocate officers, even if we're really tight and stretched thin. I mean, it's only for like an hour or two while they're getting out of school. So that's we up. Short answer is yes, we're doing what we can, but somehow the kids that go to KIP keep on kind of doing little stuff and they're kids too. So it's more difficult than dealing with adults. We don't just lock up the kids, you know, it's just a different, the approach is different. It's more of a holistic approach.
Yeah. I understand. And I'm not saying, you know, criminalize them because, you know, I'm just saying they need to be supervised. They're going out there by the loading dock at Union Market and they're going to find an opportunity to do what they want to do. So I'm just asking, I guess you answered the question that you all are helping Safe Passage.
Yeah, but it is
going out.
Just placed the emphasis on truancy and curfew violence. So if you see juveniles out past the curfew, like if you see them out at midnight, you can call 911. We now have like a dedicated curfew violator car that goes around and gets these kids, finds out why they're out past the curfew, and then takes the appropriate police action, whatever that may be, depending on what the investigation leads to. So curfew and truancy, if you see them out at 7-Elevens or whatever during school hours, you don't have to say anything to them, but you can call us and we will go get them and take them to school. We notify their parents. That is a dedicated unit during the day shift and during the midnight shift.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lieutenant. Sorry, just 2 questions here in the Q&A.
I know, I had a question.
Oh, go ahead, Commissioner.
I was trying to 2 Tuesdays ago, between 9 and 9:30 a.m. in the morning, there was a lot of shooting on 19th and 20th and I Street Northeast. Do you have any updates of, you know, what actually took place?
Okay, real quick, you said 2 Tuesdays ago, so that would have been late April. Anybody got that date?
Yeah. Hold on.
The 26th.
Okay, so on the 26th, you said, let me see what I got that day.
Because they had 19th and 20th at I Street blocked off. The constituents couldn't even walk up and down the street that day.
Okay, give me just 1 second. I'm looking, I have all the crime that occurred in the last 30 days in the reports. You said, what you said, the 20th and I?
20th and I and 19th and I.
Mhm.
was
So I do,
in the morning and between, I think, 9 and 9:30.
so I do have it like, this is April the 19th during the mid.
I think, yeah, but yeah, the 19th, I'm sorry, it was in there, the 19th.
Yeah, there was an assault with a dangerous weapon at 2119 I Street.
Yeah, I think that may be it.
Yes, ma'am. I do see that there was a report taken. It's an active investigation.
Okay.
But I did have some officers over there yesterday. I don't know if you know, there was like a candlelight vigil over there yesterday for somebody who was shot, not in your area, but earlier this year, and they succumbed to their injuries. So we've been putting officers over there to do high visibility. But yeah, I do see that. I'm not sure what the status of the investigation is, but it is being investigated.
Yeah, because I was told that a person did get shot and that it was a parent. I guess she got caught up in the crossfire. She was a parent. That's what I was informed, that a parent did get shot. She got caught up in it. She was carrying her child to school at Brown.
Okay, 2205. Give me 1 second. I'm writing down the report numbers. I'll find out the details and I can shoot you an email with information.
Okay, and also, I know it may be hard, but we need to be put on the summer crime initiative, especially in that area.
Yeah, I don't think, it's my understanding that this is not etched in stone, but I've asked about the summer crime initiative and I think the chief is doing a different approach. I don't think it's going to be called the summer crime initiative anymore. I think that they're calling it something else and the approach is going to be different. And for that reason, I don't know what the new thing is going to be for him, how he's going to, I mean, we all know summertime crime goes up. So I know he's going to do something, but I don't know what he's doing. And we got an assistant chief about 6 weeks ago. So I'm sure she has some plans for our district for the summer. And maybe on the next ANC meeting, I'll have the information for you because they haven't given it to us yet. But I'm certain it'll be something. Certain.
We really need it over here in 5D, especially these hot spots all around 5D. We really do need it, and I don't mean no harm. Since I've been the ANC commissioner since 2010, we haven't been getting what we need as far as police service over here, even the violent interrupters. I said, we just haven't been getting good service. We just started getting good service over here.
Well, I just got here.
Yeah, I'm not blaming you, but I've been an ANC commissioner since 2010, okay?
And it's good now because I'm here. I was just joking.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Commissioner. Lieutenant, just two quick questions before you gotta go. Are there any updates on the 2 recent homicides on Benning Road corridor on 17th and Benning last Monday, and the one in March where a mother tragically lost her life with her kids in the car?
Okay, so I was at the one at 17th and Benning, and it happened in front of the laundromat. And I do know that the person, he did succumb to his injury, and obviously that's definitely an active investigation. There were plenty of people outside. It happened at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So that was in Ward 6, but it still happened. So our homicide department, when they develop suspects or when they make arrests, they put out they put it out to the public. They do a press release. I'm not at liberty to discuss anything about the investigation. I don't even have the details, but I was there, and it was definitely terrible that at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, somebody took it upon themselves to shoot somebody in front of the laundromat with people in the laundromat, and people outside the laundromat, people driving down the street. So like I said, Benning Road is one of the areas where we've been focusing hard. Hence, yesterday, the officers that they did that traffic stop at the corner at 17th and Benning. That's where one of the places where we are definitely focusing. So in reference to the March homicide, I do not recall that. I need to probably, I can try and figure it out, but if that person puts their email address in, I can get them information in reference to that homicide and just shoot them an email.
Thank you, Lieutenant. And then just the last question for the night. Per incident yesterday on 18th at Benning, does the police district line cause some of the issues?
I read that comment. I'm not sure what they mean by the district line. Do they mean like between 6D and 5D?
Let's go with that, yes.
Okay.
I guess, can I just to kind of use that question as something, how do districts usually collaborate when they meet those kind of situations on borderlines together?
Okay, so we do have some pretty good technology on the police department and our radio. So for example, let's say I have a vehicle that is involved in a shooting and it just drove down Benning Road and went into the 6th district. I'm going to turn my radio to the 6th district and say, hey, we have a black Toyota Corolla with a Virginia tag that is traveling into 6D right now on Benning Road. And typically officers in 6D will hurry up and get in that area, be at the other side of the bridge trying to stop the vehicle. So we collaborate all the time in real time, all of the districts, if it's necessary, and it's something that has gone from one district to the next. And that does happen a lot. We get a lot of suspect vehicles in 5D from 6D. They drive straight down Benning Road and come into our district. So when that happens, we have tag readers and all this different technology that'll let us know that the people are in our district, and then we try to go get them.
Okay. Thank you, Lieutenant. There's no other questions from the public, and I think the commissioners have asked their questions. Thank you so much for coming and attending tonight's meeting. It really means a lot to us, and especially you sharing all this information.
No problem, Mark. Can you shoot me an email with the people's email addresses that have issues? Or don't forget to email me if you have questions. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Lieutenant.
All right, bye-bye.
Okay, moving forward with the agenda, we have now the Executive Office of the Mayor. Is Nokomis Hunter or Christopher Ingram on tonight's meeting? I do not see them. Mayor's office going once, going twice. Okay. Moving on, we have Ward 5 Councilmember's office. Is Ms. Crawford on tonight's call? Perfect.
Hi, good evening, everyone. It's good to be with you guys as always. So just a few updates. Today was the first budget vote for the fiscal year 23 budget, which starts in October, and the vote was passed unanimously. You'll probably read about the biggest budget issue today was actually Councilmember Allen's amendment to continue to phase out school resource officers from schools, and that passed by a vote of 8-5. We will be putting together highlights on Ward 5 investments in the budget, but I can share some of the things that were retained. Last time I mentioned that $10 million Black home ownership fund, that's still in the budget. There's some additional investments to the Safe at Home program, including money for home weatherization, lead and mold remediation, flood assistance. There's lots of money for emergency rental assistance. There were several investments made in school-based behavioral health, getting us closer to being able to be sure that every school has a clinician. There's also additional investments in out-of-school time programming. There's a lot in this budget. The commercial acquisition fund, so like business owners can purchase their own locations. And there was a new expansion to the DC earned income tax credit program for undocumented residents. So that was something that the chairman put in. But like I said, we're gonna produce highlights of where the budget is at as far as Ward 5 priorities. And then the second and final vote will actually be on May 24th. So there might be a few small changes in between now and the 24th, but most of the changes do happen at the first vote. So we're through that hurdle. Next, the redistricting subcommittee markup is next Wednesday. No time has been given yet, but this is the time for the bill and the associated maps around the ANC changes that are happening to be voted out of committee before the committee of the whole can vote on it as an entire council. So as soon as we hear more about the time of that hearing, we will be sure to share that with you guys. And, you know, we're just looking forward to seeing how much of the task force recommendations actually are retained during this markup. And then Commissioner Rhodes already mentioned the environmental walk in Ivy City. Thanks again for inviting the council member and myself to join that walk. It was really informative. I learned so much, and we're just looking forward to finding both local and federal solutions to address some of the poor air quality issues in that area, particularly the facility off of Fenwick, obviously is probably most important to the community members. So looking forward to following up with you on that. And then the last thing I have is just that DC Natives Day is next Friday. And so our office will be working with some of the organizers, and we look forward to sharing an email with you guys to let you know what activities are planned for next Friday and next weekend, yeah. So be on the lookout for an email around that too.
Okay, perfect. Are there any questions from the commission? Any questions from the public? Skip Keats is asking, what is DC Natives Day?
So this was a day that was established, I believe Councilmember McDuffie led on this with the council, just to honor natives, particularly Black Washingtonians, after we have seen the many years of gentrification and just the percentage of Black people going down in the city. And so this day was meant to honor them, their contributions in just Black culture in the district. And every year, I see Commissioner Rhodes, every year since that passed, there's just been activities around honoring DC natives, and this year will be very similar to past years.
Okay, perfect.
Is it a federal holiday?
I don't believe so. This is definitely.
I'm just kidding. It would be nice.
It would be nice. This is a DC bill, but I feel like it aligns with all the efforts that we saw last year with Juneteenth a little bit. So there is a little bit of a federal overlap, not specifically on the holiday, but just the momentum and yeah, just movement around this.
Ms. Crawford, I have one question. Last month, there was a young gentleman that was shot in the face and killed while sitting in his car. I reached out to the council member's office to schedule a date and time when he can sit and speak with us regarding the issues, particularly on this corner where it occurred on 11th Place and Rom. We still have not heard back from your office.
Okay, I can get back to you on that. You said
11th Place and Rom, yes. Do you know if Councilmember McDuffie is going to be doing anything, particularly with the crime that's been surging this year? The summer is coming; it's practically here, so we expect crime to rise in our end of the ward. So, do you know if the council member is doing anything about that, being that he is potentially just going to be in a lame duck period between this time?
I know that Silas, Kelly in our office are talking about what they're going to do. As of right now, those plans aren't public because they're still trying to figure out what that will look like. But as soon as that is public, I'll be able to share and let you know. And I'll also bring back what you shared about 11th Place and Rom.
Perfect.
Just get more details on that.
If we can get a solid update for our June meeting, being that's the last one we'll have until our recess during July and August, that would be highly helpful for us, just as a community, just so we know where our local representatives are kind of taking what our local representatives are taking from our meetings and just moving forward and implementing it for the community.
Okay, that sounds good.
Perfect. Okay, so there's no other questions from the commission or for the public. Thank you, Ms. Crawford, for attending tonight's meeting. We really appreciate it, representing Councilmember McDuffie's office.
Thank you.
Perfect. So moving on with the agenda, we finished our standing presentations, and we'll move forward with now our requested presentations. I'm sorry, not requested, special presentations. So our first special presentation tonight is going to be a DPR community update, the Ready to Play plan with Director Delano Hunter. Are you available, sir? Yes, you are. I see your screen up.
All right, if possible, I'd like to share my screen. I do have a brief presentation.
Sure, just a second. You should have that option.
Okay. All right, are you able to see my screen?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you for the invitation. I want to say good evening to everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you again. My name is Delano Hunter, and I serve as the director of the DC Department of Parks and Recreation. And I'm especially excited to talk about recreation in this community. I'm a proud alum of Spingarn Senior High School, and I spent a fair amount of time using the recreation assets in the community, whether it's the lot at RFK to Langston, golf course, of course, the basketball and tennis courts across from Brown, and the football field, the baseball field, Neil Phelps. So I spent a lot of time in that community, and it's something that's near and dear to my heart. So before I begin with just a brief overview of Ready to Play, I want to preface that by saying that when I initially RSVP for this, I want to say back in February or March, after I attended with the mayor, it was my full expectation that by this time we would have released a plan for public comment. We're still about 6 to 8 weeks from releasing it, so I'll provide an overview of where we are and I'll tease aspects of it. But it's my expectation that we'll get this out within the next 6 to 8 weeks. So you'll have a full opportunity to dive in into all 130 pages of the plan. And then those comments are what we'll use to make additional revisions with what you agree with in your insights. Before I jump into this presentation, there were some emails exchanged earlier today. So I had 2 updates I wanted to provide. The first was as it relates to Lewis Crow Park. At the mayor's press conference and walk last month, she indicated that under her direction that the DPR is seeking to have Lewis Crow Park transferred from the Housing Authority to DPR's inventory. At this point, there is a formal transfer process with the federal government that has to be managed and approved by the Housing Authority and also HUD. So my best guesstimate is that we're probably still a good 6 months away from that happening. Actual transfer into the district and DPR's inventory. And then at that time, it'll be a more appropriate time to discuss what the operations could look like, and any sort of potential site improvements would have to go to our budget process. So we're a good 6 months away from that. I was in touch with DCHA last week, and they indicated at the earliest it would be December of this year. So I'll keep you posted on that. Next, I also wanted to provide just a brief update on Cromell. We too are very eager, not just about that site into recreation center, but also the full 2 acres. That is a big deal for us, and we're really excited. I see Commissioner smiling, Commissioner Rhodes smiling, but we're really excited about bringing recreation to the full 2-acre site, including the Cromell School. So where we are now, DGS is going through their procurement process to bring a design firm on board. That really is the first step that sort of gives DPR the green light to schedule those standalone meetings. This project will look a little different because of the age of the building. I believe it's 110, 111 years old. So therefore, the first step, once we bring a design firm on board, will be a structural assessment. It was our initial desire to have the structural assessment done first before we bring a design firm. DGS has opted in for good reason. So we have one procurement to have that be a part of the architectural and design firm's responsibility. So to do that structural assessment, so we know exactly what we're working with. And I know there are going to be all sorts of surprises in the building. So a building with such age. And then at that point, we'll begin our full community engagement to start to take a look at what the site and what the school could look like. So those are just 2 updates. Now I'll jump into Ready to Play. I think I have 5 or 6 slides, and then I'll reserve any time for any questions that you may have. So what is Ready to Play? For those that may be familiar with it, Ready to Play is our master plan. It'll govern our capital expenditures and what we do over the next 20 to 25 years. Our last master plan, Ready to Play, was actually approved in 2014, just 8 years ago. It wasn't formally adopted because there was a change in administration, but still, it served as a guide, and over 90% of those projects have been completed and implemented. While the plan isn't binding in a sense that we still have to request, the mayor still has to approve, the council has to weigh in, and sometimes they have priorities that differ from ours. Again, it's just a good, it's a good blueprint. I kind of compare it to, you print out directions to go on a trip. Maybe you're going to New York and you decide, hey, you know, I'm going to take the Parkway instead of 95, and then I'll get on 95 at Baltimore. You know, so the route may look a little different, but at least you have a blueprint and a goal in mind. So just like to preface that by explaining a bit about the master plan and what it entails. So there are three things we hope to accomplish here. First is a strategic plan that again, that'll govern those expenditures, everything from policy recommendations to how we track and metrics that will hold ourselves accountable. We'll also communicate overarching goals and strategies. Also, again, it's a capital blueprint. We discuss where we should invest and the type of investments we should make. There's also an equity framework that we've developed. And then our actual tools, including the equity framework, and include how we classify parks and recreation centers and how that leads to various levels of service. Just some foundational information. The district was ranked by the Trust for Public Land as having the #1 park system in the nation. One of the things that they cited is that 99% of residents live within a short walk of a park, and 18% of the district's land mass is park space. And I do recognize that this can ring hollow if you don't have viable options for recreation in your community, or sometimes there may be assets that are nearby, but because of physical barriers like traffic, and also sometimes just because of safe passage and neighborhood beefs, those amenities are sometimes not accessible to you. So while we have this, you know, we aren't resting on this and saying, hey, we're #1. We recognize that we have a ways to go to fulfill this, so everyone in every neighborhood across all 8 wards feels this. Just a little bit about our inventory. We have over 68 recreation centers and 34 aquatic centers. As we head into summer, we'll be operating over 100 centers simultaneously. We have 36 spray parks. We have a number of playgrounds and dog parks, and this is ever changing. There are new facilities being built, some facilities that are being taken offline. We're acquiring federal property. So this number is very fluid, but this is just a snapshot of what we have as of today. And I think we just updated this a couple of weeks ago. So, and even in this budget cycle, I think we proposed a new dog park in Oxen Run. So maybe you'll see 20 dog parks by the time the budget is passed, and maybe we're doing an update on this maybe in a year's time. So it's always fluid. This is a bit about our engagement, but believe it or not, COVID led to an increase in actual engagement compared to the numbers we saw 8 years ago, and even benchmarking against other agencies and their level of engagement. I think we hosted a Ward 5 Ready to Play discussion, and I think there was participation among some of the folks that were on this call. So it's just a bit about our timeline. We started in February 2020, you know, just a month before life as we knew it changed, and that engagement has continued to where we are today. And the goal is that this plan will be finalized by this fall. And it'll inform our capital request. It'll inform our capital request for FY24, which we submit in November and December. This is a bit more about our engagement. Over 25,000 website visits, 19,000 engaged online. Good participation, again, relatively speaking, with survey participations. And also we had over 1,500 recommendations. I won't go into all, but these are just some of the most desired amenities: nature trails, community gardens, and then of course indoor pools. What I will note, I think COVID has sort of, we feel it, we see it in the conversations we have in communities. There's more of a premium on the outdoor spaces. You know, if I had my druthers, you know, I prefer to invest in our outdoor spaces. And I think COVID, we saw just how important they are to our mental health and well-being. But we also received good insights about some of our barriers that, you know, we have to focus on our programs, filling up. I'll give you an example, summer camps. This year, we're proud of the fact that we'll have over 12,000 camp slots, but we recognize there are close to 90,000 school-age children that are eligible for camps. Now, every family doesn't want and need DPR camps, and certainly there are other great options from the Boys and Girls Club, YMCA, churches and schools, and great options, but we know that we can do a little more than 12,000. So with the mayor's investment through Recreation for All, we'll have an opportunity to double our capacity as early as next year working with DCPS. Also, we know we got to do a better job about how we get our programs out. Everyone isn't on Twitter. Everyone isn't on Instagram. I look forward to the days when I'm outside of government so I can permanently delete Twitter. I'll just be quite honest with you. But I recognize that people receive information differently. So we're gonna challenge ourselves to do more mailings, do more postcards, more door knocking, more shoe leather politics, or shoe leather engagement rather. And then some other top barriers, lack of desired amenities. Again, that varies by community. There were 3 priorities for investment, which I highlight. The one is the investing in existing parks and new parks, and then indoor facilities. And again, I think that this would have been totally different pre-COVID. You would have saw indoor facilities prioritized over outdoor facilities. I'm pretty confident of that. Okay. We have 4 goals. Again, these are probably 50 or 60 pages worth of content that just for this I've condensed until we release the full plan. The first is to have a unified and equitable park system that addresses gaps and meets future needs. So what do we mean by that? Communities are changing. They're more dynamic. Communities are getting, some communities are getting younger and older simultaneously. We see that in Ward 8. They have one of the highest concentrations of the elderly population, but also the highest population of youth. So the needs have to be dynamic. If you look at our inventory, slowly but surely it's changing, but it really reflects a 1950s model of recreation where it was thought to just be seasonal. Where you know, you had camps, you had summer activations, and the facilities really were not adequate for year-round activation. So that's changing. Also, goal 2, we know we have to be more inclusive and resilient in our designs. I'll give you a case in point. We're proud of the fact that we never closed during the pandemic. One of the things that we did a great deal of is we supported sheltering operations close by, like at Trinidad. We also provided well over 100,000 vaccinations and tens of thousands, if not more, COVID test kits. So our facilities are used for a lot more than just recreation. So that has to be reflected in our design and the type of materials that we use. Goal 3 will be all about responsive and more diverse programming. What people expect from recreation, it's changing. We're seeing new sports emerge like pickleball and esports that engage populations in different ways. We're seeing more of a desire for women's sports and girls' sports. And through the mayor's investment, we'll have an opportunity in FY23 to expand that. And then last but not least, how do we improve and have more transparent, efficient, and engaged operations? It's something that you'll see listed in the plan as well. All right, just a few more slides. This is just a little bit about the plan. You'll see a site index, everything from a park classification and facility classifications. Also, we have facility condition assessments. So this takes a location by location look at the condition of that facility, which will help us to better triage to see, okay, what's red, what needs to be replaced now, which we'll request through capital and operating. What's yellow? Yellow means that maybe there are small operating fixes to keep it in good order. And in green are things that are in good working order that we need to keep in good working order through preventative maintenance. We'll have some other cool tools about program assessments and some of our other data as well. And then in that bottom kind of orange bucket, you see everything from level of service to equity index to growth index, which is some other cool tools that I think residents will enjoy that were specifically requested during our engagement. Okay, and last but not least, these are just some overarching sort of thoughts. One of the huge recommendations was to maintain what we have. And this is something that is near and dear to my heart. We work closely with our partners at Department of General Service, and we know they're working as hard as they can, but we fought really hard to establish our own maintenance capacity within the agency. And for the first time in almost, I think, 13 years, next fiscal year, we'll have a small maintenance team. Well, what will they do? Well, already, I think, closed about 700 tickets this year, everything from removing graffiti to dumping in our facilities to cleaning out leaves and debris that are left during the winter season to just spot fixes that we think will improve the quality of our outdoor facilities and our park spaces. So really excited about that. Then also one of the other things that we'll look at is we know we need to acquire new property. We're land strapped. here in the district. But there are opportunities through sometimes acquiring private land, which we have done, and also partnering with the federal government to look at some of their assets to see what type of agreements are possible, whether full transfers of jurisdictions or maintenance agreements or cooperative management agreements, rather, that will allow us to program and operate those spaces for the benefit of the community. So that's just a little bit about where we are. I would encourage you, if you have questions, to go to readytoplaydc.com. It has some of this information. And again, we're a good 6 to 8 weeks from releasing this to the public. We're going through our internal kind of review process. I just met with the deputy mayor's office. He had great recommendations that I think will only enhance it. We're meeting with a number of the agencies. Some have had a transition in leadership, which has delayed this. But we'll get those recommendations out in the next 8 weeks. And the goal is to have this fully adopted by this fall, so that it informs many of our capital requests going forward. So thank you. I know that was a mouthful. I will pause here for any questions.
Okay, great. Are there any questions from the commission?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, Commissioner.
Hi, good evening. My name is Commissioner Bernice Blacknell. I'm the ANC Commissioner for 5D04. I have a question about the little park area across the street from Brown campus. There's 2 areas there, and I was just informed that Park and Recreation owns them. There's a tennis court there and a basketball court there. It needs some work done to it. It really does. The tennis court needs new nets up and everything. The basketball court needs basketball nets and everything put up. We was told it was owned by the government. We was told it was owned by somebody else. But then we were finally told that it was owned by Parks and Recreation. A couple of times, Parks and Recreation did come out there and cut the grass and everything, but it really needs some work done, because the kids at not only at Brown, but Two Rivers School, they would like to go over there and play in that area, but it's not suitable for them.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I can confirm 100% positive that the basketball courts and tennis courts are owned by the National Park Service. The district's property picks up at the Spingarn Stadium, the track and the field. But that area in question is
that's mine too. I'm the ANC commissioner for all, they call them the schools on the hill, but it's been around about 3 or 4 years now. We've been trying to figure out who owned that area, because it's been neglected.
Yeah,
it's been neglected.
It's bad. It's been bad. When I was, it was terrible. It was in terrible condition when I was there in the 90s. It's been bad for a very, very long time. What I can share with you is that I believe there was a recent walkthrough there that I just found out about a couple of hours ago. We were not invited and not privy to that walkthrough, but I think there is some momentum there. While we may not play a direct role, given that we don't own that property, I was excited to hear an update today. And again, I don't know what's ready for public. I don't want to steal anyone's thunder, but there is some momentum there. And I hope we just want to see it activated. There is some momentum there.
Yeah, because the principal at Brown, she's kind of upset, and I'm kind of upset as an ANC commissioner and everything, because it is my area, and it's sad when you see these young teenager guys trying to do something productive out there playing basketball, and they don't even have a basketball hoop or nothing like that, or even they want to play tennis, they don't have the nets or anything are not up and everything. The area has just been neglected, and we've been trying to find out who owns it. And a couple of weeks ago, we just found out that it was Parks and Recreation.
No, we don't. We don't. I agree with you. What I can say with absolute certainty, and National Park Service has acknowledged this, it's a federal property. Now, with that being said, I don't want to just pass the buck and say, hey, MPS, you have to fix it. If what I heard today was promising, I'll follow up specifically with you, Commissioner, on this once I can get an update, but I can confirm it. It's certainly owned by the Park Service. It's not a district property. And again, I just want to see where we are. Hopefully it's an exciting update and they're ready to share some of their plans with the public. But I agree, it's an absolute deplorable condition. We have challenges with our home systems. I don't want to pot calling the kettle black, but I can tell you nothing is to the extent of what you have there. So we just don't hold it to that standard. We're able to do a little more with our local resources.
Yeah, well, please email me some type of information. I hate to say it, nothing against you and everything, but these government agencies, they treat 5D bad. Please don't take it personal, but it is what it is.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you, Commissioner, for asking that question. Commissioner Rhodes, I believe you were wanted to ask a question as well.
Just really quickly, so we will be planning for the entire 2 acres and the school.
Yes.
And will DPR get access to the whole 2 acres, or will it remain with DGS and DMPED?
No, it's with DGS. It's district owned now, so it'll likely be transferred over to DPR. Now, the goal is to utilize
entire 2 acres.
That's right. That's right. The goal is to utilize the entire 2 acres for recreation or in support of recreation. So what I mean by in support of recreation, I don't know, maybe a need for a parking lot, maybe a need for a pass-through, turnaround for trash trucks. So the goal is to activate the entire 2 acres to support recreation.
So it's not recreational amenities for the community. You're talking about recreation as far as DPR.
That's right. That's right. DPR controlled and operated recreation.
Okay, so when we have our meetings, you would have to clarify that, because we don't have time to get into that.
Have you heard like private recreation? What exactly?
No, I'm talking about for the community, like a swimming pool, maybe some turf for the kids that play football, just the entire 2 acres as a park and recreation for the community.
That's correct. That's correct. All of those would be recreation suitable uses that we program and provide. Now, with regard to what we can accomplish with the budget, that's another question, but
we understand.
Yeah. Got it.
No, we're going to fight for more money, but we just want to be clear that we're going to be able to plan for the entire 2 acre site for the community.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Sedelmore has a question.
Yes, I missed the first part of your presentation, so my apologies if you already answered this question. But ANC 5D submitted a series of recommendations as part of the community feedback portion of the Ready to Play plan. And I was wondering if you gave any type of an update on those specific recommendations. We did a resolution, I want to say probably about just over a year ago. And those recommendations included some of the things Commissioner Rhodes brought up for Ivy City, as well as the triangle parks that are owned throughout Carver Langston, and potential DPR uses at Heckinger Mall once that is redeveloped.
So what we do specifically, thank you, we did receive over 1,500 recommendations, and you try to like identify trends. And then what we do is we also kind of mesh that with levels of service, right? So I'll give you a common one. One was, I'll give you an example about how that played out. One was in the Hillcrest community, right? So I know it's Ward 7 Hillcrest, not necessarily specific to Ward 5. One of a longstanding requests has been for a pool. And they say, hey, the nearest pool is Deanwood. We know it's not in a walkable distance. So not only was that reflected in our survey, that also was reflected in our level of service analysis, where we say, hey, in this specific community, there isn't access to these amenities, dog parks, pools, recreation centers. So then we'll say, hey, these are areas that can accomplish this, right? Or these are areas that are in need of this. So we won't weigh in and say, place something here or there. It's more so zonal in nature. The one thing, I'll tell you how your recommendation is helping to inform the plan. One of the things that we heard last year, I think someone said, well, hey, well, they're building this at Rosedale. And we know some people access Rosedale, but we know because of some safe passage and other neighborhood considerations that some can't. So on paper, you would say, oh no, there's a recreation, there's a pool close by. We know the reality of the matter is that that's not the case. So what we've had to do is go in and make some broad, localized recommendations for communities that have a high density, high population, and there may be safe passage concerns to get to nearby amenities. So that's one of the things I think you'll see reflected. And what I would encourage you all to do is when that plan is open for comments is to make those comments if you see something that you think needs to be more clearly called out, or if we've missed something. Every time we shop this to a different agency, a different stakeholder, we find something that, oh, well, we need to clarify. Oh, no, yeah, that's a good point. So there will be an opportunity to weigh in before it's adopted.
Okay, well, I appreciate that. Thank you, because that does really address the question.
Thank you, Commissioner. Questions from the public. We have one question from Ms. Denaite Sakar. Throughout Montello Avenue, there's a lot of patches of grass by the sidewalk that need to be replanted, needs overall maintenance. Does Parks and Rec own this? If not, who owns and is responsible for maintaining it? Director, I don't know if you want to answer that question.
Sure. If it's that strip of land between the sidewalk and the street, then that likely would be controlled by DDOT as a public right of way. But I'll work with Nokomis if Nokomis isn't on here. If you can send an email to Nokomis and myself, we'll be happy to just follow up with him and flag for DDOT if they're on.
I was just gonna add to that, the person who's responsible for maintaining it is you. So you as the homeowner are responsible for maintaining that tree box area between the sidewalk and the street. And you can be fined. So you're actually responsible for up to 18 inches into the street. And that's free of debris, trash, etc.
Thank you. Great clarification. Yeah. If there's something like a divot or something broken, like I had a big divot that was made from a tractor trailer and I couldn't, then they would help out in that case, right? Something that's a safety hazard. Thank you. Thank you for clarifying.
Okay, perfect. No other questions from the public and no other questions from the commission. Director Hunter, thank you so much for attending tonight's meeting. We truly appreciate the presentation and the information you shared.
All right, and Ms. Blackwell, I hear your concern about the Langston playground. So look for, I'll see what I can share.
Yeah, it's Brown. It's that area right directly across the street from Brown.
Okay, nope, I know exactly what you're talking about. Got you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you all.
Thank you. Okay. Moving on with the agenda tonight, we have another special presentation from DCRA regarding illegal construction. Is the director available?
Hello, Commissioner. Yes.
Perfect. Okay, Director, when you are available, go ahead.
All right. Good evening, community. Good evening, neighbors. Commissioners, thank you for having me here to connect on a number of our issues. Delighted to be with you. And before I touch on sort of like illegal construction in general, I want to make it clear that I really appreciate you all for the robust engagement that we've had over the last several months. I know whether it's Commissioner Guzman or even Commissioner Moore, you've had specific questions for my staff around problem properties, and you've also had specific recommendations that my staff is working on. So I really want to thank you for that robust engagement. One of the things that we don't really talk a whole lot about is sort of like the role that our committee plays in helping us with actually enforcement. When you ask specific questions, why has this permit not been revoked? Or why has this fine not moved along? I'll tell you, from a quality assurance perspective, it helps us move things because we deal with a lot And at the core of everything that we do is all about ensuring that we keep our neighbors safe. So with that as a background, I would like to just talk briefly on 3 properties. I don't have the list of all properties in a particular area, but I know the account manager for Ward 5 is actively engaged. One property that comes to mind is 1835 H Street Northeast. That is owned by Nationwide Properties. It's long been a problem property. It was previously owned by, I think, Helpful Investing LLC, and there's been a number of questions around it. But as of yesterday, based on the briefing that I received, I know we are looking at what is the next appropriate step as it relates to whether the property or the owner meets the threshold for denied permits when they've received 5 or more stop work orders in a particular year. It is currently going through legal sufficiency. And one of the things that I want to be sensitive to is denying a permit that will fix an issue. That's one of the last things we ever want to happen. So while the case is going through legal review, I want to balance the need for abatement with the need to just deny permits to send a signal. So we'll make sure we keep the community informed. Another update for that specific property, to the extent you're not aware of it already, is that we sent an enforcement demand letter to the owners of record to address issues with previous permits where they had inaccurate information, and that has been addressed as well. So I share this with you more as an update, but also as a reflection that we'll continue to be responsive to the needs of the community. And when you have specific questions, just do let us know, and we'll continue supporting you. Another property that is also been a challenge is 1850 Kendall Street Northeast. A number of you know about that property. And the main update I have is that we made a referral to the Office of the Attorney General, and they are working through some issues via the DC Superior Court. And you ask, okay, why do they have to sort through issues? Well, typically we compile sort of like a dossier or a case file that shows our inspection history, previous enforcement actions, and areas where the property owner is just not motivated to address the issue. And when that becomes the case, we seek the Attorney General's support in sort of like driving compliance and enforcement through the court system. Yes, that's process takes some time, but that's also yet another enforcement tool and strategy that we bring to bear to ensure that we keep our communities safe. Then 1635 Montello Avenue is Northeast is also another challenging property, but we'll continue leveraging all the tools we have to ensure that we can get to the right outcome. Now, to the extent possible, I just want to share my screen so that the community also has a sense of some of the enforcement tools we have, which I have not talked about here. So that I know that DCRA has options, but sometimes because of the due process required and also the nature of the process, it takes time to get some type of resolution. So just bear with me for a minute. Let me share this information with you briefly. All right, you should be seeing a chart now on the screen that looks like different colors going through different schemes, and that is to illustrate the complexity of enforcement while following the law. To your left, you see what we call like inspection types, and then to the right, you see something called payment status. And the reason we put things in these two buckets is to help you see that one enforcement tool we have, which usually comes out of our inspections, whether it's a construction inspection, a consumer protection investigation, a housing inspection, illegal construction, or vacant property inspection, is a notice of infraction, a fine. And once we issue the fine, it goes through a legal process and ultimately goes to the Office of Administrative Hearings for them to adjudicate it. When they issue a final order, payment is required, and we follow up with the person who lost their case for them to pay. But in between those two sort of like bookends, there are a number of things that we do. One, for example, is a stop work order that we issue. Another is a correction order, where we are directing the property owner to do specific things. So for example, if the structure is not safe, we'll say, go hire an engineer to do an assessment. And then once they make the assessment, you pay for the assessment and you pay for the remediation. What is also another enforcement tool that you see in the middle is Dcra Abatement. Now, we have limited resources, so it is impossible for us to abate every violation that we find. In fact, the person who is primarily responsible for abatement is the property owner. However, where there is immediate threat to the life and safety of our residents, we do step in, and then we put a lien on the property for the special assessment so that it is paid by the property owner when they sell the property. That takes time as well. But I share this with you to see that there are different tools that we bring to bear. But at the end of the day, fines are just one enforcement mechanism. And we don't stop at just fines. We recognize the complicated nature of the enforcement tools, and we do everything we can to ensure that we get to the right outcomes. Something that we are doing this year, which is a result of work that we've done last year, is the identification of bad actors. We've combed through illegal construction complaints, some from your community. We've looked at permit data, we've looked at business licensing and enforcement history, and we've identified entities or property owner or their agents that deserve higher levels of enforcement scrutiny. Some of those actors are involved in properties in your community. So for example, the work that I mentioned that OAG is working through some issues through the Superior Court, and also the case where we are reviewing more than 5 stop work orders is a result of this work. So at the end of the day, all these tools are being brought to bear to ensure that we can provide the appropriate relief. In the best case scenario, we should have enough abatement funding so that we can address every issue. But the challenge with that is that's just not realistic. And also that may make property owners get off the hook by thinking the government is the repairman. So regardless of those circumstances, we'll continue working with the community to address many of the issues. One thing that I also want to share in conclusion, then I'll take some questions, is that Commissioner Guzman, when we went on that walk with the mayor, several properties were identified, and you rightly talked about some of the timeline that it takes to resolve these issues. As of tonight, what I call the green structure, that building that had the open and accessible doorway we were dumping has been addressed because we sent notices to the property owner, they didn't fix it, and we decided to step in with the abatement so that the property can, community can get some immediate relief. So that's just an update I also want to share, all to paint a picture that we are empathetic and we understand the complaints, the needs of the community. But I want to assure you without any doubt, DCRA is here for you, and we'll continue doing everything we can to bring owners accountable. And we really appreciate the tips, the insights that you share to help us address these issues.
Thank you, Director, for that information. Were there any questions directly from the commission first before we go into public questions or comments?
I have a
something.
Oh, you want to go first, Zach?
Sure. First of all, thank you, Director, for meeting here with us tonight. You ended by discussing bad actors, which is funny because earlier in your presentation, you mentioned Helpful Investment LLC. I am deeply familiar with this company, and what they do is they buy properties for their portfolio and they convince people who don't know anything about housing investment to buy them as a guaranteed payday. Then they help this person set up a single project LLC that they sell the house to, and then Helpful Investment steers the owner toward their preferred contractor who cuts corners and does everything as cheaply as possible, whether it's within the regulations or not. In 2017, a Helpful Investment property on I Street Northeast collapsed, damaging the neighbors' houses. In 2020, next door to me, the property, the foundation partially collapsed, damaging my neighbor's home. And now come to find out that 1835 H Street Northeast used to be a Helpful Investment property. I think anytime their name shows up on permits, that should be a red flag for DCRA. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention.
I just wanted to follow up on that comment because I just want to remind folks that there was also a collapse at 1835 H Street. And that whole townhouse was torn down without any permits whatsoever, just no permits. They tore down an entire townhome with no permits. Then, although the same person is the beneficial owner, one of the beneficial owners for Helpful Investing, they sold it to a different LLC, just as Commissioner Cobb mentioned. And that LLC, the one that's currently being investigated by DCRA as part of the Bad Actors Task Force, now has the same beneficial owner as that previous company. So it is definitely a excellent candidate for the bad actors list. I think what troubles me about it is that I went through the process of explaining this to the chief enforcement officer at DCRA, and I don't think he fully grasped the issue. So, for instance, I gave that background about the transfer between the various LLCs. But then I also shared with him that the reason why you saw an inaccurate name on the paperwork when they filed for their permits is because they owed the city tens of thousands of dollars at the time. And no DC government agency is allowed to issue permits to anyone who owes the city more than $100. Mr. Parsons was not aware of that. And it was very troubling to me to have a conversation with him where we're talking past each other as to why they would file an incorrect name electronically, but file an accurate name on their written paperwork, because he didn't understand or know that requirement existed under the law. And so I don't know, what kind of additional training might be available for enforcement officers, especially for the top enforcement officer, not to know a really basic rule, because that applies to all DC government agencies. And we see that all the time as ANC commissioners. If you owe the city $100, you can't get an ABRA license. There's no license that you can get from any agency in the district government when you owe the city money, and this property still owes the city more than $10,000. So they should not have permits right now, just simply based on that fact. And the only reason they were able to do it is because they submitted an incorrect name for their LLC with all of the exact same address and other information as a way to bypass whatever electronic checks there are to make sure that they're eligible for permits. And so you're seeing this kind of behavior from them and LLCs associated with Helpful Investing over and over again. And it's not just the one situation at 1835 where you have the 5 stop work orders or the fact of them owing the city tens of thousands of dollars. It's also that you have neighbors recording children doing labor on the construction sites and having that on video. The partial collapse of not only that building, but causing damage to the adjoining property to the point where that person no longer even has a gutter downspout. They crossed the property line by so much. And it took us until this week to get someone out from DCRA to measure the building, even though that's been a complaint that the building needed to be measured for the past 2 years. Because they were clearly, they knocked off part of this person's porch. They're gutted that they were clearly over the property line. And so I think it is not only just kind of the knowledge of some of the enforcement folks, but the speed with which they go about enforcing it, it does seem lackadaisical until you start pushing back on higher ups. So I really appreciate some of the technical changes that have been made at DCRA. It is a major improvement in terms of the technological advances, and you do deserve kudos on that, because I know a lot of that was your work. But on the enforcement side of things, I'm just very concerned about the lack of knowledge, and in a lot of cases, the lack of a sense of urgency to take 2 years to be able to measure one building that had a collapse that could have killed people, last year, 4th of July. So yeah, I think there are some more serious issues here than just kind of the process workflow that we looked at. But I'll leave that there.
I'll be really quick. 1850, again, there's a lot of issues, not just 1850, but all over the city. I testified at the DCRA hearing, and everyone across the board had the same issues, especially as everyone has been saying, the bad actors, the LLCs. You have one bad LLC and then another bad one come in, and all they do is get slapped with a fine, they pay it and they move on, and they keep doing the exact same thing. And it's wearing everyone out, especially the people that live in the surrounding part of that property. So I'm not sure exactly. I know you said that some work was done last year for the policies, the new policies this year, but what are the rules? That little diagram that you had that looked like it was weaving, how old is that? Because it's clear that a lot of the LLCs are going by the same handbook, and that's get a cheap property, do the bare minimum, do shoddy work, and if they get their business license taken away, they'll deal with it and still do the work when their business license is taken away. And then when they finally get their business license back, most of the work has been done off not even having a business license. And everything but everyone is being affected all across the board, all across the city.
Commissioner, to answer your question, the chart I showed is from fiscal year 21, and it is something that we monitor now as well, because we had to come up with a strategic approach to enforcement, recognizing that when it comes to issuing fines, I would say we got really good at it. We produce so many fines that we've actually overwhelmed the court system. We got efficient in that area because of some small tweaks. For example, requiring property owners to have an email address on file. So when we do an inspection, they get the NOI, and we know it's going to an address that has been verified and validated. So there was an increase in productivity and efficiency there. What we had to get better at is for those that the fines fail to motivate them to take the appropriate action timely. So we had to come up with a different enforcement strategy, but we also had to understand previous enforcement actions. So that's why we started tracking the data about different enforcement actions that we take, the fines. So at the next time we are going after somebody, it is with the context of, okay, fines didn't get you to do what you had to do, or the judge say you have to pay the fines, you pay the fines. We gave you stop work orders, you apply for a permit, you got into compliance, but now we can show a pattern of disregard for the regulation and the health and safety of our people, so that now we'll prepare a different case against you and package that up for the Office of Attorney General to sue you and deal with you as well. So that's basically the reason why we came up with that Sankey chart, so that at the staff level, people are also thinking about the big picture. What else can we do beyond fines, stop work order, revoking permits, revoking business licenses, and taking them to extra scrutiny? So that's just a bit of a background. And to also minimize the chance for mistakes. Because if now somebody is a subject of our strategic enforcement, we want to make sure that we apply the same rules evenly to all the bad actors. And these things take time. By the end of the day, for it to be efficient, we had to create a process around it. And that is why we came up with that methodology. And it's working. For example, people that we've been able to identify as even subcontractors on different projects, we've been able to bring evidence and charges that led to the suspension of their business license. And these things, I wish we could just do it with like a snap of a finger. The reality is that the law doesn't work that way. We have to go through several steps and processes. So we'll stay the course, because I like to think the message is being sent to those who just don't care about the communities that we live in, that, you know what, yes, you may have a licensing issue, but when you come to us for permits, there'll be extra scrutiny on you. And then the subcontractors that you use, there'll be extra scrutiny on them. But it takes a team, and I would be remiss if I don't say we are incredibly grateful for the insights that you share in the community, things you see, and the tips that you give us.
Commissioner Moore, you still had a question?
I do. My question is, I heard you say that there was a shortage of staff and you guys are overwhelmed. My question is, how are you going to triage this going forward? Because I mean, we put in these six, you asked for community engagement, community feedback for all of these decrepit infrastructures and properties, and we give what we have to give, what knowledge we have to give, and we create these tickets, and we send these emails to DCRA. But if we're not getting the agency feedback that we deserve, and we're not getting the strategic assistance that we deserve, and we keep hearing you're understaffed and overwhelmed, then there's something on your end, right? There's something as far as your org chart that needs to be addressed, whether it's hiring more bodies or more funding or more knowledge and skills and abilities, more credentials. Something has to be done, because I get it. I understand that you have a hard job and that you are short-staffed and you are overwhelmed. But as a community and as citizens and residents of this area, we've seen this time and time again. And we always have directors or top agency perspectives come in and just say things like, we're overwhelmed and we're overstaffed. We get it. We do. Especially with the rise in the pandemic and the things that are happening daily. But how do you tell us, or how do you engage us with remedying it or triaging it? What are you going to do to help us move forward? You know what the issues are. We know, and we know what the issues are. What are you going to do to help us?
I'll first of all address something that I have not said, and I don't believe, and I don't subscribe, because when we sign up for public service, it's because we want to do everything we can. I don't believe we are overwhelmed. We are doing our job. Staffing challenges is not unique to the government. Like, we in the Great Resignation, so everybody has to deal with staffing challenges. That said, you asked about sort of like, triaging and what are we doing? When it comes to triaging, we've established a process where we take in information, ferret out what is actionable versus what is not actionable. Yes, it's not perfect, but it's better than what was in place 10, 20 years ago. That being said, we are taking a strategic approach to enforcement, knowing very well that there's routine enforcement, that is like issuing fines. But we have to do more than that. And that is why we've invested in a team that can look at the issues, look at the history, devote attorney horsepower into pursuing cases, in partnership with the Office of Attorney General. That is why we've made investments in identifying bad actors. Now, it may sound like an easy exercise, but I promise you, it is a complex exercise because you are looking at records from 10, 15, 20 years ago, some that were even in paper before we digitized a lot of stuff, and establishing a pattern of behavior so that the case is as strong as it can be. Additionally, having account managers, interface with the community is also one step. Having me attend these conversations so that you hear from the top brass of the organization, knowing that we do care, we are empathetic. And then the results also show whether it's fines that have been sustained, licenses that have been revoked, but I also know we have to do a whole lot more, and it's going to take time. So if there is this idea of immediate results, I'll say no, not on complex enforcement actions, but it will take time, and I ask for the community to just stay with us as we work through these issues. To the extent that is also helpful, do know that at least in the mayor's proposed budget, we are getting additional resources specifically for enforcement and customer service. For example, we are getting 8 more inspectors for illegal construction, and we are upgrading the illegal construction program so that they are some of the top talent we can find in construction. So when they go to a site, they are just looking to see if you were working after hours or you were doing work without a permit. They will actually open their plans, do a walkthrough to understand if you've actually gone beyond the scope of the permit, creating the potential for safety issues and addressing that during that visit. So that's just one step. Another step is putting in place super customer service agents. Those who can do their research, they are empowered to take action so that when you call or you email us, we try to resolve that interaction with one person. So you don't have to deal with multiple departments coordinate issues. Those are things that we are excited about for the next fiscal year. I know it's not immediate, but it builds upon the work that we've currently done to ensure that we can help keep our community safe.
So I'll just say this, it's concerning to me to hear this idea that there's not a thought that the staff is overwhelmed in some way. And I just want to be really kind of direct about the 1835 example. It shouldn't have taken 2 years to measure, because under normal circumstances, that building would have been complete. It shouldn't have taken 2 years to come out and measure at that location. And not until this week was the measurement completed. And another instance, even in corresponding with the bad actors team, because that was the correspondence where I had to send, and it's DC law, and I'm gonna say this out loud for people who wanna look it up, is 47-2862, and it is a prohibition against issuance of license or permit. So it does not provide the agencies with leeway as to whether or not they can issue a permit when back taxes are owed. It's specifically an outright prohibition against doing so. And that's exactly what happened in this instance from February of 2021 to September of 2021. And that's while working with the bad actors team. And they originally closed that case. I had to file and reopen a new case with the exact same information after sharing, with Mr. Parsons, that actually it's an outright prohibition against issuing or reissuing licenses, under that code. And so I as someone who is sympathetic to a lot of the staff members, I think it is clear to me in some ways that DCRA has made major improvements, and I don't want to undermine the work that has happened, because there have been a lot of major improvements at DCRA. I remember how bad it was, but it's not just a matter of not being perfect. is that these are very real safety concerns for people because that building collapsed 7 p.m. on 4th of July weekend. You know, anyone could have been walking down the street. I walk that way with my dog almost every day. You know, anyone could have just been standing on the street. It crushed a car. It collapsed all in the middle of the street. Anyone could have been killed. It's just by the grace of God that no one died. And that's after years of complaints from the community dating back to 2017 that occurred for the July weekend 2021. And we're still now in 2022, and there's some debate as to issuing permits or, you know, whether or not to revoke the permits and that kind of thing going on those properties. So I don't want you to think that we're expecting overnight results. We're not. But 2017 to 2022, I don't think anyone would reasonably consider overnight, considering what's been going on at some of these locations. We've had residents sending in children doing the construction work, you know, really kind of egregious things happening at this site prior to the collapse. And so I want it to be kind of clear that I do think some of the staff could benefit from some additional training around some of the enforcement authorities that already exist, and maybe a little nudge in the right direction to go ahead and feel very much more empowered to use those enforcement authorities, especially in situations where the community has years and years of grave concerns about construction at the site. We have lots of construction going on in the Carver-Langston area, but you only hear from us about 2 or 3 properties. And I really think there's a reason for that. And I don't want the thought to be that we're somehow as a community unreasonable or against, you know, people being able to do construction. We just want people to do it in a safe way that's not endangering other people's lives. And so I just kind of want to kind of make that clear based on my experiences that a lot of things have improved at DCRA, and credit where credit is due, but there are still some very real safety concerns.
Thank you, Commissioner. And I think the community has been more than reasonable. The community has been patient. This is not an issue of us seeing the community making demands. Not at all. The community has been plenty patient, I would even say over patient in dealing with these issues. From a public service perspective, I think fundamentally our job is to rise to the occasion. Our job is to figure out solutions and bring it to the table and get community input and put in place policies to address gaps so that when things don't work well, we can recalibrate and adjust. So that's the level of sacrifice. And that is what we see in the agency as part of the culture change. It takes time for a culture change to be effective. We put our employees through required training around the laws. And then we look at situations where we could have done better, and we go over that, sometimes doing roll calls with inspectors and sometimes even doing management meetings. For example, one of the things that the chairman had asked about was the history on some of the properties. I wrote him a letter and I showed him areas where, oh, this picture could be a little bit different because at the time of, for example, permit application, they didn't owe money, right? But they owed money later. But when we look at overall case file, we said, no, we should be applying more scrutiny to people who are also trying to play the whack-a-mole game. And that is what it's going to take. Yes, you are good on this issue, but let's look at your history, because history tells us you are likely going to commit an infraction. So it is that approach that I want to share with the community that we are taking. And we are making sure that we learn from the history, but above all, place our residents first, because it's all about safety. And whether it involves third-party inspectors who review some of these projects that we have to put scrutiny on, third-party agencies, the subcontractors, the contractors, the expediters. I mean, we are broaching new territory when it comes to enforcement, so that everybody who is involved understands it takes a team to keep our community safe. But if you step across the line where you're not supposed to be, it's just a matter of time. We may not catch you right now, but with these changes that we are making, we will get you eventually. So again, I can say more about how thankful I am for your engagement. on these issues, and do know that the feedback you give today and things that you've shared in the past is not falling on deaf ears. We are taking it to heart.
Thank you, Director. So we're pretty pressed on time now, but we'll take one question just to clarify from the public. How do we formally report someone for bad actor program? Similar things have happened at 1732 through 1736 Montello. This is the area that we addressed on the Mayor's Walk, so you're aware of this area. Cracked foundation at 1730, forcing a 90-year-old resident out of her house due to unsafe conditions. After her passing, the family settled with the LLC, which bought the 1730 Montello property and intends to make another 5-story structure. As owners of 1728, we are very concerned for the condition of our property.
All right, so let me unpack that one a little bit. The easiest and a straightforward way to report any unsafe condition is through our website, and we keep coming back to that because there's a record of it, and we can investigate. When it comes to trying to nominate somebody for a bad actor, just file a complaint so that we can do a research on the name, the entity, the beneficial owners, the infraction history, so we can prepare a case file and see if it meets the threshold. Because sometimes we do research and we see that no, the names are similar, it's not the same person. And other times we do research and we say, these are people who are actually trying to game the system by coming up with funny names. So that process that we have in place that we've started is not something that we've put sort of like time limits on it, because it's sort of like a discovery process that we go through. Email that information to dcra@dc.gov. Believe me, it goes into a database, we'll work on it. And once we build a case file that can sustain a legal challenge, we'll move forward.
Thank you, Director. Those are the, Kevin Horgan has a question. I'll let this question because he's the head of our zoning committee. Will DCR, was this for you? Will DCR release a public? Will DCRA release a public tool that would allow neighbors to report illegal Airbnb rentals? The properties are exceeding the allowable number of rental days per year. There are several properties on my block that appear to be 100% rentals, far exceeding the law. We're losing housing stock, hurrying affordability to Airbnb rentals.
The short answer is yes. We have an enforcement regime that would be ramped up after June 10th. You ask what is special about June 10th. When we started implementing the Airbnb regulations, it required people to get licensed, and it required the platforms to also take certain actions. Now, Airbnb is not the only player when it comes to short-term rental. There are Rebel and others. However, there was a need for people to get additional time because they were having challenges getting clean hands, which, as a lot of you know, is run by OTR, not DCRA. You got to have clean hands before you can apply. What we saw was that by giving people more time, then when we ramp up enforcement, there's not going to be an excuse that I didn't know, I didn't have time. So after June 10th, what we expect is that properties that are being listed will, one, clearly have a license. Two, they are not going to go beyond the allowable time. So for example, if you do like a vacation rental, you cannot go beyond like 90 nights. We have developed a system that will be monitoring the days that hosts list their properties and days that people actually don't have the properties available for somebody to rent. And once they meet a certain threshold, we will send notices and take enforcement action. So that's a long way of providing some background on our enforcement approach. But the short answer is starting June 11th or the day after June 10th, we'll be taking actions for those who are in violation of the law.
Thank you, Director. Thank you for tonight's presentation, taking our questions. We spent a lot of time on you, so we appreciate the time that you did share with us. And I'm sure you'll be getting a lot of emails your way. Your office, at least, will be getting a lot of emails your way shortly. So again, thank you for attending tonight's meeting. We appreciate your time.
Thank you all very much. I wish you all to stay safe, and I look forward to staying engaged. Bye-bye.
Okay, everyone, we are 30 minutes behind on our meeting, according to the agenda. So not to say that none of the questions on any of these things are necessary, but please be mindful of the time that we have to make use of it if you do have questions on the upcoming presentations. So these requested presentations, our first one is Zach Gambetti regarding 8th Street Northeast Bus Priority Advance Notification. Mr. Gambetti, are you on?
I am, yeah.
Perfect.
Great. Thanks for having me. Let me, I'll share my screen really quick just to cover. There we go. Turn my camera on. Great. All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Zach Gambetti Mendez. I am here to talk to you quickly about the 8th Street Northeast Bus Priority Project. We are just kicking the project off, so this is just the very beginning. Here to let you know that the project is happening. And, we'll be back in the pretty near future, I think, to start talking about what this project actually will do. There we go. I will not cover the slide in full because I know we're pressed on time, but essentially the district now has a bus priority program. And the goal of this program is to improve bus speeds and reliability across all 8 wards of the district. And so you can see the map on the right side of the screen there. All of the blue lines are the corridors which our program, the bus priority program, will be working on over the next several years. And 8th Street Northeast is one of the top corridors in the city. And so that's one of our first projects that we'll be working on. I just want to point out that as part of this program, if you start seeing other projects come around in your area, we are kind of breaking these projects down into like 1 or 2 mile segments. Instead of doing entire multi-mile corridors at a time. And that allows us to make improvements more quickly across all 8 wards along multiple corridors. And so really the goal is to get things in the ground quickly to help improve bus service as well as pedestrian safety. So access to the bus, right? Oh, right, there's 8th Street as one of our first projects. So just very quickly, the portion of 8th Street that we're looking at is from North Capitol Street over to Benning Road Northeast. And so you all are maybe not necessarily directly on the corridor, but definitely very adjacent. And so we wanted to make sure that you were aware that this project is going, as many of you may use the 8th Street corridor to take the bus, to take the streetcar, to walk to many of the businesses, or drive to many of the businesses. We just want to make sure that you all are aware. A couple things to note, from North Capitol Street going west, there is a current bus priority project that will actually be installed this spring, maybe being installed right now. I'm not sure the exact progress on that, but so if you kind of go west of North Capitol, you may see some improvements. And then one thing that we're kind of juggling right now is the 8th Street Hopscotch Bridge replacement. We're working pretty closely with that team just to understand their timeline and things like that. So we may not be able to touch the bridge right now, but once they're done with that large project, then we can kind of come back and look at the bridge. Quick needs assessment, just so you understand kind of why we're looking at this corridor first. The 8th Street and Benning Road line, which is like a grouping of specific routes. So that's the X2, X9, and streetcar, is the second busiest line in the entire Metrobus system. So that's, the entire region, DC, Maryland, Virginia, the whole thing. This is the second busiest line. It's just behind Georgia Ave. The X2 itself is the second busiest Metrobus route, just by itself, again behind the 70 on Georgia Ave, but very close. And so, just those 2 stats together show that this corridor is moving a lot of folks through the corridor to different parts of the city, to the corridor itself, and has a lot of people moving through it. Additionally, of course, it has the streetcar that currently operates, with traffic in a travel lane that will soon be expanded over to Benning Road. So just want to be kind of mindful of making sure that the streetcar can run efficiently through the corridor as well, especially as we get, the streetcar gets longer and longer. 8th Street Northeast is a Vision Zero high injury corridor, and so what that means is it is one of our corridors that has a disproportionately high number of injury crashes, especially with pedestrian vehicle crashes. And so we'll be kind of taking that into consideration as we look at improvements to the corridor, how we can keep people safe as they walk along the corridor, walking to the buses, or just traversing the corridor in general. And so really what we have here is, really high passenger volumes and really slow travel speeds. There's a graph here, but just, basically it just kind of shows that throughout the day, the bus speeds really kind of slow down and dip below 8 miles per hour, which is pretty slow. And they really don't recover during the day. It's really kind of bogged down throughout the entire day. So we'll be looking at ways to keep those buses moving and moving a little bit quicker, so that they can serve the community more reliably. So these are some potential tools. Just that, we're starting to look at the corridor, we're starting to look at the data. We have a lot of community feedback coming into us, and so these are some potential tools that we could utilize as part of this project. We have a toolbox that has over 20 tools in it. So this is not the full list that we could engage or utilize. And just because there's something on here doesn't mean that we have to utilize it, but we will probably be looking at bus lanes or like a transit lane for the streetcar as well. So giving kind of buses and streetcars their own lane to operate in without having to kind of, deal with traffic. Potentially some bulb outs and curb extensions, especially with the long buses that serve the 8th Street corridor. Sometimes if it's hard for those buses to kind of get over to the curb, and if there's cars kind of parked where they shouldn't be, sometimes that prohibits the bus from getting over to the curb, and that can really impact like ADA access to the bus and needing to deploy the ramp but also be at the curb. So this helps kind of bring folks to the bus so they can board and the bus can just keep moving in its own travel lane. And then there's also this thing called transit signal priority, where the bus is actually kind of communicating with the traffic lights, allowing it to kind of extend a green light for a couple more seconds or something like that to allow the bus to move more freely, especially if it's able to get through that light and make it stop at a stop and load passengers. So again, these are just 3 potential tools, just looking at the preliminary data, looking at the information that's coming into us now, and we'll kind of further refine these as we move forward and gather more community feedback. 2 things to note, or one thing to note is that the scope does include curbside management. So we'll be looking at the curbside lanes on 8th Street and determining is what's there now working. Do we need more PUDOs? Do we need any other kind of PUDOs or pickup drop-off zones? Sorry for the acronym, but do we need more of those so folks can hop into restaurants really quick and come out and carry on, or is the parking adequate? We'll be taking a look at that. And then of course, pedestrian safety, as I mentioned, this is one of our high injury corridors. So quick timeline, we're currently in the spring, we're kicking off the project, letting people know that it's happening, gathering all of our data, doing field visits and walking the corridor. We've walked the corridor several times. As we move into summer, we'll start actually putting some of those tools that I mentioned onto paper and bringing them out to you for your feedback, and then kind of work through that during the summer. And then by the time we hit the fall is when we're hoping to kind of get a preferred alternative for the corridor and move that over to our design team. They can spend the next several months to a year wrapping up the actual design, the engineering documents, all that kind of stuff, and then move it into construction in 2024. So this is our timeline right now. We do have a couple of feedback methods. So we have our feedback form that I can post these links in the chat, but we have our feedback form. If you don't want to use the feedback form, we also have this email address, which I'll also put in. And then, if you're not comfortable with using these electronic means, or folks that maybe don't have internet access or things like that, we also have a phone number where you can call and leave information as well. And so really, again, right, we're just kicking off this project, just letting you know about it, and really just starting to collect this community feedback. We've already received quite a bit for 8th Street, which is great, but we want to make sure that we're kind of getting it all. And so, again, I'll kind of throw these into the chat and happy to answer any questions if there's time. Otherwise, thank you for having me this evening.
Perfect. Mr. Gambetti, thank you so much. Commissioners, are there any questions from the commission? I have no questions from the commission. Are there any public questions? I don't see anything in the Q&A. I have a quick question, Mr. Gambetti. Is this going to affect any existing bus routes that we have here in 5D outside of the X2, X9, I think you labeled?
Maybe very minor. So I know there's a bus that I think maybe the D8 that runs on Georgia for a bit, or I'm not on Georgia, I'm sorry, on 8th Street for a bit. That would, benefit from being able to if we had lanes, it would be able to utilize those lanes. If we had curb extensions at one of the stops it makes at 8th Street, yes. We are also looking at the B2 stop on 14th and H. We understand that there's often cars parked or sometimes trucks loading in the bus stop. And so again, the bus has to stop in the middle of the street, and that can really impact ADA accessibility to the bus, or maybe not even just ADA accessibility, but just accessibility in general. And so we are also looking at ways to improve that bus stop as well. You may see those improvements sooner than this overall project. So those are the two I can think of, besides X2, X9, and in the streetcar would benefit from these improvements as well.
Okay, and then a final question. When is the next time do you think we will get an update on this project?
Yeah, so my hope is to get back out probably like midsummer. Like I have in my mind like July timeframe, maybe like later July is when I would like to come back out.
Okay, so after the summer, most likely we should have another update on this project.
Yeah.
Just knowing that things take time.
Yeah, no, I mean, we are trying to move this forward quickly. I mean, we want the feedback, right? But like the point of this is to make improvements more quickly. So yeah, like I would like to come back in July. I've already kind of made that a priority for this and one of the other projects that I'm working on, to have like a larger public meeting, probably that DDOT hosts, which we can work with you all on to make sure that we're not conflicting days, or just make sure that we're kind of picking the right days, where we actually have something for you to react to, like like a street that has the bus lanes on it and some curb extensions, so you can start weighing in on something something actually on paper.
Okay, sounds good. I don't see any questions in the Q&A, and the commissioners don't have any questions. Mr. Gambetti, thank you tonight for your time. We appreciate you attending tonight's meeting.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Perfect. Mr. Duger, I'm sorry if I mispronounced your last name. Are you still available with us, sir?
I am. I held on.
Thank you, sir. And you're here tonight to talk about the DC ticket adjudications.
Yes, my last name is Duggar, and thank you very much to the commission. I do have a brief, I'm going to move through because of the time, but I do have if I can share the screen, please.
Yes, sir.
All right. All right. So again, good evening to everyone. My name is Tony Duggar, and I am the Adjudications Ombudsman for the DC Department of Motor Vehicles. I'm going to go over some real quick points as relates to the office, the services that we provide, why the office was established, as relates to adjudications in the District of Columbia. As most of us know, DC experiences significant tickets, I should say traffic and parking issues. And as a result, the city considers traffic enforcement a serious initiative to ensure public safety. And what comes out of this, as we all know, is a lot of adjudications because citizens do have a right to contest tickets. And so with that being said, my office, a quick summary here, helps citizens and visitors of the District of Columbia to move through the adjudication process as they seek redress and assist them in identifying options to resolve their ticket issues. My office was established in 2014 by the City Council for the purpose as stated. My position as the ombudsman is an appointed position by the mayor, and the office is independent. So I always like to say I have no skin in the game as relates to DMV operations. I operate out of the DMV agency, but my office is set up for the purpose of serving citizens. Our process, we hear the issue. When you make contact with our office, that information was put in the chat earlier, which was the email and the phone number. We hear your issue. We research your issue to determine its validity. If the issue is valid, we will advise the citizen of the next step, and we will refer that issue to the appropriate office. If the issue is invalid, we will explain why it is invalid and why we cannot forward or refer the issue from our office. When an issue is ambiguous, we will forward it to the appropriate office for their final word and determination. The services that we provide, we inform citizens of their right to contest. And there are fundamentally 3 areas to contesting with the adjudication process. So first, to contest, if a decision comes back that you don't agree with, you have a right to request a reconsideration. If you disagree with that, you have a right to file with an independent board. We call it the Traffic Adjudications Appeals Board. And then if you don't agree with that, you have a right to file with DC Superior Court. We will assist you in preparing your case. We will explain the fundamental defenses of a ticket. We will review an open adjudication. We will explain the hearing records, and if there are errors, we will assist in correcting those errors. We make appropriate referrals to other offices to assist. For example, if a person has challenges with paying tickets, that typically falls under the jurisdiction of another agency, but we make those referrals. Again, as I mentioned earlier, we determine valid and invalid complaints. We identify systemic errors and concerns raised by citizens, and within reason, we can give you our opinion concerning the likelihood of winning an adjudication. But please note very carefully, we cannot provide legal advice or speak to a final decision that comes from a hearing examiner. I want to just go over some quick facts about tickets. You have 120 days or approximately 4 months in the District of Columbia to adjudicate a ticket. You can do it by mail, you can do it online, and you can do it in person. To avoid your ticket from doubling, it's very important. You must respond to the ticket within 30 days. What the District of Columbia is simply saying by this particular rule is that you just can't take a DC ticket, throw it on the shelf, don't look at it, don't care about it. If you do that, the city says it will double. Responding to a ticket means you can either pay the ticket or you can adjudicate the ticket. The district is saying, just answer the ticket. Let us know exactly what you want to do. If you disagree with the decision, you have 30 days. As I mentioned earlier, you can contest a ticket, you can ask for reconsideration, you can move to the Independent Appeal Board, you can go to DC Superior Court. Between each level of adjudications, there's 30 days from the hearing date to file for the next level. And I just explained this, but if your reconsideration is denied, as I mentioned, you have 30 days to file with the board and 30 days to file with DC Superior Court. If you do not contest the ticket in the first 60 days, so this gets a little funny, not going to go very far into details in this, but I mentioned 4 months or 120 days. In the middle of that is 60 days. And so we have a unique rule in the District of Columbia that's beneficial to our residents, because if you do not contest a ticket within the first 60 days, it will still double at 30, but you will still have an option in the first 60 days to contest a ticket, but you have to do it uniquely with the filing of what we call a motion to vacate. And that's done between the 61st day and the 120th day. And after 120 days or the 4 months, the adjudication period is closed. Now, let me explain why that motion is critically important. In our city, as you know, we have a lot of people that travel. We have military residents, people go on deployment, a lot of different trips and various things that may be connected with anything in a person's life, whether it's work, whether it's the health issue, helping a loved one, and you're out of the city and you may not get that ticket. Well, you have the option to file a motion to vacate if in fact you do not respond to that ticket within the first 60 days. The 61st day to the 120th day will require you to file that motion. So in the District of Columbia, the hearing examiner functions as a judge. My office functions as really an advisor to your situation, help you navigate the process. One of the things that we point you to is what we call the government's evidence. And so if the government issues a ticket, the government should have evidence, the public should be able to see that evidence. And these are the two main sites where the evidence can be found. For camera tickets, it is public.site-web.com. You can go there and you can look at the details of the ticket. You can look at what we call a deployment log, which is a log that is certified to show the functions of the automated equipment in the District of Columbia. It will show the calibration measures and so on to certify the equipment is working properly. We have another site that is called TickPick, and that's out of the Department of Public Works. And as most of you know, the Department of Public Works is primarily responsible for issuing parking tickets in the District of Columbia. And so as a result of that, their requirement is that when they issue that ticket, they're going to take a picture of the violation. They're going to take a picture of the street sign. You'll be able to see the government's evidence at TickPick. There are 4 agencies that comprise the traffic regulatory system in the District of Columbia. And probably most of you know, the Department of Transportation, or DDOT, pretty much handles signs and road notices. They do enforcement and they do direct traffic, basic functions. DC Metropolitan Police Department has, although there's been some transferring of responsibility, they have traditionally managed the automated enforcement program, which deals with our camera and the video, stop sign, red light violations. The DC Department of Public Works, as I mentioned, deals with the parking enforcement. They do exercise that. They're also responsible for the booting and the impoundment. And unfortunately, if a vehicle makes it to the end of the line, as we call it, the end of the line, then it is it also manages the auction. Department of Motor Vehicles handles the adjudication and all the other kinds of services that you know in terms of inspections and driver's license. I am the ombudsman for adjudications. That's critically important. I'm not the ombudsman for the Department of Motor Vehicles, specifically for the operation of the adjudications office. I'm going to run through some commonly asked questions. I think these are critically and very good bits of information for DC residents. How long does it take to complete a hearing decision online? Roughly at this point, you can expect if you did a decision, I should say, if you did a hearing online and you were waiting for that decision, now currently it's about 8 to 10 weeks. So you do it online, you're going to forfeit. You have an option to do it in person. If you go in person, you can get that decision the same day. You can go in between 8 and 4 any day of the week, the Monday through Friday, and get the decision the same day. If you do it online or if you mail it, you're forfeiting your right to an in-person hearing. And in that forfeiting, you're also agreeing with the government that we will wait on that decision to come out. At this particular point in time, it's 8 to 10 weeks. Can a ticket be transferred from one person to another? No, it can't. A lot of people ask that question. If somebody else was driving my car and you know, they incurred a camera ticket, that ticket cannot be transferred to the person that drove the car because the ticket is actually written to the car, issued to the car, and the owner of the car is responsible for that ticket. Can a person request a payment plan? Yes, you can if you are a district resident. Will the DMV consider undelivered or late mail? No, the District of Columbia will not consider that because the District of Columbia is not responsible for U.S. Postal Service delivery. Typically, within the DMV, the agency can identify when that mail went out. They can certainly verify that, but once it leaves the agency, then it's the responsibility falls on either the delivery of USPS or the resident. Can a person pay a portion of the ticket and still contest it? No. If you pay a ticket you have accepted liability of the ticket. If you pay any portion of the ticket, you have accepted liability of the ticket. Can a person adjudicate a ticket connected to a rental or leased vehicle? That's a yes or no answer. Legally, you can't, because only the registered owner can contest the ticket. And when you're leasing vehicles, then you are not the registered owner. The company is the registered owner, and you are in contract with the company. So typically what happens with leased or rented vehicles, and more so rental vehicles than leased vehicles, is that the rental company will pay the ticket to keep the car on the street, and then they will come after you to pay the ticket. So, but there are occasions where people do contest tickets. I've seen it's very rare that they'll contest a ticket and actually get an answer back. But that's very, very rare. Most of the time, the rental car company will pay that ticket. Questions? If you have any personal adjudication questions, please call or email my office. I have that information. I already put it into the chat. Feel free to do so. What's in the chat is also right here in terms of contacting me as the ombudsman. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you, sir. Does the commission have any questions to ask? No questions. Ms. Lyons, did you have a question?
No, I just had a very brief presentation.
Oh, okay. Sorry, you had your hand up. I didn't know if you had a question.
That was accidental. Sorry.
Okay. There's no questions in the Q&A. Okay, Mr. Duggar, thank you so much for attending tonight's meeting. I'm sure you'll have some folks reach out to you. Anything else, feel free to reach us if you need to reach the commission.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Lyons, I think you are next. Yes, murals DC for projects in 5D05 and 5D06.
Yes, if I can share my screen briefly.
Yes. You should have that option.
Okay. Okay. You should see the two properties on your screen. My name is Nancy Lyons. Good evening. I am the Public Information Officer for the DC Department of Public Works. I'm also the manager for Murals DC. It's a mural program that complements our efforts to keep our corridors clean and aesthetically attractive. This is the 15th year of Murals DC, and this year we've been approached by two properties in your SMD. The first one, as you can see, 1830 Benning Road, Northeast. It's the Food 7 store. And the second is at 1400 Florida Avenue Northeast. That is the Delta Towers. Both of those properties have approached us about painting a mural on the wall on the 1830 Benning Road. It would be the wall that is the blank brick wall that you see. And then on the 1400 Florida Avenue, it would probably be that tall strip, that 8-story, 1, 2, 3, 4, like 8, 10-story wall, blank brick wall that you see. I don't know, based on our budget, we probably wouldn't go straight all the way from the top to the bottom. We probably would hit maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 7 stories of it. And so the purpose of me speaking to you this evening is the part of our process is we do like to, first of all, let the community know that these projects may be coming to their neighborhood, but also to give them an opportunity to provide some information, maybe some historical information, things that are important about the neighborhood that you might like me to share with the artists once they are selected and brought on board and begin the project. We tend to like to have the murals tell some level of story about the communities in which they live. This, I don't know if we're going to be painting a mural on both of these buildings. We're definitely going to try, but the artist selection process will be going on for the next maybe 3 to 4 weeks. And then the mural installation process would not begin until late summer. So I just wanted to make everyone aware of that information. And I am going to include my email information in the chat for anyone who may be interested in providing any sort of historical information or information that the artist may find useful as they're working with the property owners to come up with the concept. And you can also send me an email if you just have any questions in general about the program or the process and how it works. Thank you.
Perfect. Do any of the commissioners have any questions for Ms. Lyons? Okay, any questions from the public? I don't see any hands raised or any questions in the Q&A. Okay, thank you, Ms. Lyons, for attending tonight's meeting. We appreciate the information and look forward to seeing those projects come to fruition.
Thank you.
Okay, now moving on with the agenda, we have one final requested presentation from Mr. Ronald Lester for the Pepco Benning Road Community Advisory Group. Mr. Lester, thanks for holding out and attending tonight's meeting and talking about some stuff going on over there on this CAG. Oh, you're muted, Mr. Lester.
Good evening.
There you go.
I appreciate the opportunity to come out and talk to everyone. I'm with the Benning Road Community Advisory Group for the Benning plant. The remedial investigation and feasibility study is a project that began in January 2013. It emanated from some spills, chemical spills into the river from the Pepco plant. The District of Columbia Environmental Services Department sued Pepco. They went to court and they entered into a consent decree. And the consent decree indicated that Pepco would voluntarily clean up the river, and that the judge in the case suggested, well, she didn't suggest, she demanded that there be a community advisory group that would meet with Pepco and DDOE every month to basically view and evaluate the process. So there are 21 members of the CAG, all of the ANCs within the footprint, the community associations like Deanwood, Parkside, River Terrace, Eastland Gardens, etc. And we meet with Pepco and DDOE every month. So this study is getting to the end. The remedial investigation, which was the first part of the study that identified the problem areas within the river, was completed, and it was basically explained to the public in a public meeting on November 2nd, 2019. Since then, the team has been working on the feasibility study. The feasibility study will outline the options that will be used. There are different options that could be used to ameliorate the damage that was done in the river. The ultimate goal is that the river be fishable and swimmable. That's the ultimate goal here. So the feasibility study is being finished as we speak in May of 2022. So the next step is to choose an alternative. That will be done by the end of the year, at the beginning of next year. And then the actual work will begin on the cleanup process. So one of the things that the CAG has decided early on is we wanted to open up boat tours of the river, so community residents who wanted to see what was going on firsthand had the opportunity. So I'm here tonight to let you know that we're in the process of organizing a new boat tour. We will work with the leadership of your group, as well as all those other groups that I named, the 7D, 01 to 08, and 5D, and try to decide upon a date where everyone can come out and get a tour of the river, have their questions answered, and basically see firsthand what's going on. So our plan is to meet on a Saturday morning at Kingman Island, to have coffee and donuts from 9 to 10. And then from 10 to approximately 12, we would have a tour up and down the river and to show all of the effective areas and basically answer all the questions. It's a very valuable asset. You could even begin to see that a lot of wildlife is returning that had left. Eagles are spawning their young. They have nests there. The fish are starting to return. So I would encourage anyone who would like to come to actually come out. What we're going to do is work with Commissioner Saucedo, some of the other commissioners across the footprint of the Benning plant. And then we will send out an evite. Now we're starting to run into the summer, and I know a lot of ANCs and community groups don't meet during the summer. So we're trying to get in and make a presentation to all of the groups in May. So we'll have a date by about June 1st. There's a possibility this could be pushed back to September if not enough people sign up for a June trip, a late June trip, maybe early July trip. But this is the plan. This is all part of the Anacostia sediment study. There are seven different remedial investigations that are going on, and they're all directed at making the river fishable and swimmable. But the date has changed, and there are a lot of different projects going on. But we're talking in the next few years, basically. So we'll get those invitations. Once I finish meeting with all the various organizations, we'll decide on a date. We'll send it to Commissioner Guzman, and we would hope that you could come out and join us for the boat tour. It is a really great boat tour. There's a lot of history along the river. There are a lot of different animal species that live in dynamic harmony. So it is a real treasure and an asset. So I invite you to come out. Any questions?
Any commissioners have questions for Mr. Lester? Any questions from the public? I don't see any hands raised or anything in the Q&A. Okay. Mr. Lester, thank you for coming out tonight and letting us know a little of the updates on the CAG and upcoming boat tours. I look forward to attending myself and seeing some of the residents attend as well. So we'll be in touch to get that going.
Thank you very much.
Perfect. So we've ended tonight's portion of presentations, and moving forward with the agenda, we have voting actions, and we have quite a few. So thank you everyone who's been holding out for tonight's meeting and still with us tonight. We truly appreciate it. The first voting action we have on the agenda tonight is two for Mr. Eric Teran, but we have our first one is BZA case 20707, and that is at 1146 16th Street Northeast. Mr. Teran, you have the floor.
Good evening, everyone. I'll try to be quick. I was in front of the board, I believe it was in February. This is a property that my wife and we purchased to have as an investment property. One day maybe we'll live there or we'll give it to our kids, but we do plan on holding it long term. It is located at 1146. If I could zoom in, there we go. 1146 around the corner of 16th Street and Meigs. We are proposing to add past the 10-foot rule, which is why we're here and why we're going to the BZA. As you can see, lot 96, we're going to the 10 feet plus another 6 foot 3 inches, and we're creating a dog leg to lessen the massing, and then that's where that goes back another 6 foot 3. So let me state that again: 10 feet, then 4 foot 11.5, then dog leg, then going back. As you will see here, this massing is in similar size as lot 260 and is a little bit smaller than 234 and 254. It does go past about here a little bit more, but since we're on the north side, it does help with the sun and the shading, which I'll get to. And we're proposing 2 units, one on the basement and the first floor, which would consist of 4 bedrooms. I know Ward 5 is big on affordable housing and family size housing, and this is what we're proposing to do. We go up the stairs and we will create the second bedroom or second unit, sorry, on the second and third floor, which would be 5 units, 4 on the third floor, and then you have a bedroom back here on the third floor, which could be used as an office as well. I'm going to the elevations. I've got 3D elevations as well, so we'll get to that. But this is the front, this is the back. The side elevation along the street. This here is basically what's there right now. I'm a little bit higher. And this is basically the addition with the special exception that we're asking on this side, which is a little bit further because of the dog leg. And this is what the neighbor would be, where we're asking to come back the 10 feet here, going back that 4 feet, 11 and a half, dog leg, and then going back another 6'3". Just want to show you that we are below the allowable height limit of 44 feet. We're at 34'8" with the parapet. So that does help with casting shadow onto the street. Moving on to the 3D renderings. This is what would be viewed at the corner. Right now we're showing siding, but I think we're probably going to keep it the stucco and probably just repaint it. I'm just speaking to the contractor. It just might be a better choice economically. And I think it'll probably look a little bit better switching the materials. That's on the corner. This would be on 16th Street, looking with the neighbor and the height difference we have. And this would be the back. As you can see, this, I think creating the dog leg really does help. It definitely lessens the massing. And as you can see, one of the requirements for a special exception is that you're not intruding on anybody's privacy, which we have no windows facing into this yard. And this is a window that's actually in the shower about 5 feet high. So it's really just to let light in. And then finally, this is the rendering from Meg Street, where we got the parapet here, but we've lessened it here just to get that a little bit smaller, for the massing if you're on the south side. And finally, we'll just review the sun studies quickly. The right is what's a matter of right, and on the left is what's proposed. Unfortunately, we're on the north side, so there is really no issue with shadowing. The additional shadowing here is here on the red. This is summer. This is at noon. So once again, here's a little bit more shadow. It doesn't affect anybody except a little bit of the sidewalk. And then going at 3 p.m., once again, it's very minimal, which is another of the items of the special exception for shading and lighting. So it has no effect on the neighbors down here. This is the winter solstice on what that shading would be. So just a little bit here at 9 a.m., a little bit here at 12 a.m. or 12 p.m. And lastly here at 3 p.m. One of the last areas is, does it fit within the character of the neighborhood? It is, 3 stories tall. It is a little bit bigger. Along this side, the massing is taller, but that's regardless. This is all by right in the front. So really what we're looking at is back here. And does it fit with the character? I think it fits with the other 3 houses on Meg's. And we are getting a little bit further back. I think by doing that dog leg, I think that really helps create the massing to be lessened. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Teron. For the public to know, this one is in my SMD in 5D02. I used to live here on 16th Street, so I know exactly where this property is. Did you describe in this in these renderings or project, there was an issue with the current property as it stands where the water drainage runoff is coming into the sidewalk, and we have a lot of issues across 5D where some of these where some of the water drains, it goes into the sidewalk, and during the winter it freezes and becomes a big issue for people just walking on the sidewalk. Did you fix that issue with this project?
So I'm definitely hoping we fix that. I have seen that when I do go to the house. I know the corner has the drainage issue. I think it's about like right there.
Yes.
There's always water coming out from somewhere. I have no idea where it's coming out from, but that's definitely something we got to take care of because it can be an issue. It's going to be our home or our building, so we definitely want to take care of any water issues. I know we did a soils report, and they did find water down because we are going lower the basement or create a basement, and they did find water there. So it's definitely something we have to address during construction. And I don't know where that water is coming from, but I did see that, and that does have to be resolved.
Okay. Are there any questions from the commissioners? Any questions from the public?
Did we ever end up hearing from the abutting property owner?
I spoke to them and they were in agreement. They signed the letter of support, as did this neighbor here and the neighbor right next to them. And I believe I got one more letter of support. And there was 2 letters that did not support, which was this gentleman, lot 234, and I believe lot 199.
Can you tell us why they did not support, or they just didn't get any feedback or response?
234, we did have some communication. The first one, they wrote the letter when I did propose a much bigger addition. I think I asked for 10 feet when I first came to the ANC and zoning committee. They think it was just too big. They don't like the view from their back window. Lot 199, I don't remember what it was. They sent the letter, I think it was last week. I don't remember what their concerns were.
Okay.
And I wasn't able to communicate. I knocked on the door a few times, but I didn't get a chance to speak to them.
Did they submit the letter in the BZA case file?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they both
So we
did.
so it's publicly available. We can read it.
Yes.
Okay. I know my concerns were initially taken care of. You took the feedback that I provided and what some of the other neighbors provided, and you kind of brought the project down to a scale that really doesn't affect or impact the neighborhood or block in a negative way like it originally was going to be. So I know at least the things that I addressed were properly taken care of by you. Any other questions or comments from commissioners? Okay. So as the commissioner for 5D02 in this BZA project, I move that we support BZA case 20707 as proposed by Mr. Turan. Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Abstain. And again, I have to abstain because due to my day job, I am ethically conflicted from commenting on land use decisions.
Thank you for clarifying that, Commissioner. Okay, the ayes have it. Thank you, Mr. Turan. That is your first project for tonight. BZA case 20707. Next one is BZA case 20680 at 801 20th Street Northeast.
All right, let's do it just as quick and we'll see how we go. Okay, so we're back. I know I'm not sure if Commissioner
share your
Moore,
screen again.
Oh, sorry. I'm not sure if Commissioner Moore has shared with you the details. We did go BZA. It has been going back and forth. We have redesigned it with input from Ms. Moore and the zoning commission study, the 19-30. And so we have made some changes. And I think and that's mainly because we want to be more in the character of the neighborhood. We really want this to fit in. And I know this is a very complicated project because it would be the first one. It's the first one asking for special exception in R4 zone. I think it's a good project, and there's definitely going to be future projects that are going to ask for special exception. I think this is a good one that you could hold as a standard for other projects to meet. So this is the addition that we're asking for in the back, and we're asking for the special exception to extend further than the 10 feet. We are creating 2 or 3 units. One will be on the first floor, half of the first floor and the basement, which will have 4 bedrooms. Once again, really taking into consideration the family size housing. And unit B would be the second floor going up to, or would be on the first floor as well, the other half, and then going to the second floor would have some more bedrooms. And what we did, which was different, is, after speaking to BZA and Ms. Moore a few times, to get the character of the neighborhood, we added unit A with an entrance from 20th Street as well. So we get that scale. I think that really helps, and we'll see that on the 3D renderings. And we still have the entrance off of H Street as well to once again help the scale of a 3-story building, because I know you guys know what that looks like with the one right next door. So we don't want to create this big block. That's what most developers do, and we're conscious of this. So we're creating this entrance over here for unit B and unit C, which would be on the top level. So we go to the second floor and the third floor. The second floor, you're here now, and this is the 4 bedrooms. And then you'd come up to the third unit, which is at the third floor, which would have a nice open space and 2 bedrooms. This is the owners do plan on moving in here on unit C. That is their goal. And they've stated that to me multiple times. And then you have the roof deck, which only unit C would have access to. And we'll look at the elevations real quick. So to the right is the entrance. I'll speak about the elevations a little bit more when we look at the 3D renderings. The left is the rear entrance, or I mean the rear facade along the alley. Here is the front facade along H Street. As you can see, I think this definitely does not look like your typical block where a developer comes in, builds a 3rd story, there's a huge parapet wrapping around. I think the massing is smaller than what could be. And finally, this is from the neighbor to the south, or I'm sorry, to the north, on how the addition would come back. So you got your 10 feet here and your additional. Now it's only 6.52 inches that we're requesting. Originally it was 7.84. And I'll go over that a little bit more in the 3D renderings. So this is the first rendering we have along 20th Street. And as you can see, I think adding this door here really, I think complements what the buildings next door are doing, and actually all along 20th Street. We also have the rhythm of the windows on the second floor. We're repeating this. And this little dormers type of decoration on the windows, kind of a nod to the house right across the street. I think they have 4 dormers on the second floor, and so we're just kind of playing with how can this building interact with the rest of the neighborhood like it belongs. And I've got 2 of the same one, and then this is along H Street. So you can see we have the gabled roof, which is also kind of a nod to the house right across the street on the corner, which has a gabled roof as well. And then we have the 2 bump outs, and then the rest of the units. And then the other entrance as well, which I think helps with the massing, which isn't, that tall 44 feet that it could be. And then looking again to the side, this also helps a lot with the sun, as we will see. And then we have parking we have 2 parking spaces in here. And then finally, our last rendering. So originally we asked for 7.84, which was this dotted line. We pushed it back by a little bit over a foot and 3 inches, I believe. We took out, there's like a little architectural piece that was sticking out, and we changed the material to brick to siding. So that helped us reduce it to 6.52. This would be the by right line. That's the 10 feet. And this is the 40 feet height that we can go by right. The floor can go, or the roof can go up to 40 feet plus another 4 feet for parapet, which is this height. And let's go to the sun studies, because I know we're asking for 6 feet here, but I think the design has helped. We actually have helped in the summer to create less shadow on the house than if we built it by right. And so that's kind of where I'm getting at, as if you want to use the first one as a good example, I think this one could be a good one. I hope you agree. This would be the summer solstice at 9 a.m. As you can see, this is matter of right. And this is what we're proposing. As you can see, the blue here, we're actually reducing the shadow. If we go to 12 p.m., this one was the one that kind of surprised me. Matter of Right is creating this shadow, and I'll zoom in a little bit more to see. We're actually creating less shadow at noon during the summer, and that's because we have that gable roof, we've got lower parapet, and so I think I know we're asking for a little bit more here, but we're helping over here. And then we go to summer solstice one more time at 3 p.m. It's really just the alley and the own property, but we do create a little bit less here and a little bit more at the gable roof. Summer, this is where winter, we do create a little bit more shadow here. It's not, that significant, but it does create a little bit more at 9 a.m. This would be 12 p.m. We're cutting off a little bit more of the shadow along the yard. And this would be at 3 p.m. where we cut off this, that little triangle. So, I know this is maybe we wish we weren't first, after you guys went through this whole process to lessen, from an RA2 to an RF4, we're keeping your front setbacks. We're not asking for more there. I think, we're being mindful of what we're doing with the design to try to stay, with the character of this neighborhood, not to be a monstrosity. I think there's some interest to it. So I hope you guys see it the same way that I do, that, this is a good standard that if there's the next project that's going to ask for special exception, you could kind of compare it to this one. Because, there's definitely going to be other projects down the line that are going to ask for a special exception. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions from the commissioners?
I don't have a question, but I do have some comments. What I'll share is that I do think that the design is a very attractive design. And I do appreciate the steps that you've taken in order to, most of the feedback is honestly not from me, it's from the Board of Zoning Adjustment in terms of doing a better job of kind of fitting in with the character of the neighborhood, except I will take credit for the dormer window suggestion. But I think there's still two primary challenges that we face, and I think you kind of touched on it. One is that we're in a tricky situation with the BZA in that basically your project is requesting a special exception to a rule that has yet to be implemented in reality. And so that's really a challenge that we're having in terms of the BZA and how the RF4 zone, which we are the first in the entire city to receive that designation. And there are no RF4 buildings that meet those exact standards which exist. And so that is kind of a technical challenge that is very specific to this case, because how do you request an exception to something that in reality does not exist yet? And so I think that's the challenge that we're still having. Ultimately, I think, just depending on kind of the leadership transition that's going on right now with the Board of Zoning Adjustment, that they might, make a different decision than the previous zoning board made. But I do think just for the sake of precedent, because it does affect right now, even if you're just on this block, about 50 homes? Because the challenge that we're having is that, let's say, for instance, it's a domino effect. Let's say, for instance, you're allowed to go back 10 feet and you decide to go back 5, and I'm just making the math easy here, beyond that, and the BZA approves that. That means that the property next door gets 10 feet beyond that. So that, yeah, it does. That's exactly the argument that we're having with the BZA now. And I know what your argument is, but their discussion between the chair people, the incoming and the outgoing is exactly that argument that we're having. And frankly, the outgoing chairperson is correct. And so it continues to add up as you go down the line for properties until you do reach the 40-foot limit. And so, you know, I know that there's quite frankly a lot of back and forth between the members of the BZA and the ANC around a variety of technicalities. I don't think that your project in and of itself is unattractive or necessarily deserves to be derided. It's just that there are technicalities here that set a precedent for other people going forward. And I think we have to be very mindful of that because it does affect quite a few more properties than just the one or two that we normally look at for a BZA case. Excuse me, I'm not feeling so well. The second issue is the chimney issue, and the drawings still aren't up to date in terms of the fact that the shared chimney is actually with that adjacent neighbor, Miss Hill, and her property, and that's still not reflected in the drawings.
So if I could address that.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely have to get that resolved, and that's a building department issue.
Yeah,
and we have looked at options with the owner. What would happen if we can't, or Miss Hill doesn't want to work with us or allow us, you know, to change her chimney, which is her right. So we have looked at that option. What would happen to the units? And that'd basically be the third floor, the first, second, the basement, first and second wouldn't be affected. It'd be really this third floor, because we'd have to create, you know, like a circle there to create like the 10-foot radius. So unit C would be the one that really be kind of destroyed. We'd have to figure that out. But that is definitely, that's a building department issue, and we can't get a permit until we resolve that. So it's definitely ongoing. As far as the zoning and going back, I don't think it's 100% domino case. One, you know, you have to have 20 feet setback. So
you don't.
No, you do have. That's 20 feet you have to have from your rear property. If you ask for more than 20 feet, that's a variance. The problem with the 10-foot rule is it's a rule, but it's not a setback that you can't go over unless you like claim hardship on a really tiny lot. So none of these houses will ever be able to go back to the public alley. That just won't happen. They're gonna have to ask a variance, and none of these properties could claim hardship. So you couldn't go back that much further. You're going to have that 20 feet in the back no matter what. It's the same as in the front, which is why, you know, one of the big arguments from RA2 to RA4, RA2 lets you go all the way to the front, which is what happened to this building here on the east side.
Right.
That's by right.
I know, because I'm the person who wrote it.
Yeah. Well, so yeah, so you know,
so
RA4 you can't.
That's not correct.
Well, you can't go. You can't in the back. You can't go more than 20 feet.
Yeah, you can. You can.
But it'd be a variance, and the variance is much more difficult to get than the special exception.
It would not necessarily have to be a variance, and that's the argument that we've been having, because the outgoing chairperson sees things in that exact same way. And
but
so
that's a legal right. I mean, we could talk to some lawyers, but
or the zoning administrator.
Yeah, we can ask them.
That's who would make that decision.
But yeah, I'm pretty sure that but we could argue about that later, but
yeah,
that's my understanding. So, you know, and then also, let's say this house over here decides to go back further. You know, they still have to create a sun study. It may be their house is the monstrosity that goes 44 feet, creates much bigger shadows, and that's a different thing, because a special exception, it's 3 things that you have to be considerate about. You know, light, shade, noise, privacy. I guess it's 4, and character of the neighborhood. And that's what they look at as a special exception. So, you know, if somebody did it here, but they had windows or something facing this yard, or the shadows casted much bigger shadows because of the way they designed the building, it's not necessarily a slam dunk case, is what I'm getting at. So yes, we could be setting, I think it's a good precedent, because we aren't in somewhere we're creating less of a shadow. You know, so maybe the next person that wants a special exception, you could say, we gave 801 approval because it actually did create less shadow. What are you going to do with your house or your building? So, you know, I think that's how supposedly the zoning is written for special exceptions. If you kind of prove these things, does it work? So yes, it's not, I don't think it's a slam dunk case, but yes, if they do something, a good design, and does meet the special exception requirements, yes, I mean, they could build back again. But yeah.
Yeah, no, I understand your case. It's just that our issue is not setting a good precedent for special exceptions. It's setting a good precedent for the zone overall. And so I think you made a strong case for yourself in terms of setting a precedent for special exceptions. I don't argue with that. It's just that that's not the point of the discussion. It's you know, it's a side topic. I mean, nice side topic, but it's not to the point. So I don't have any additional commentary. And Commissioner Guzman, I'm going to turn it back over to you if you want to ask if any of the other commissioners or public have questions.
I don't see any questions in the Q&A from the public. Do any other commissioners have questions for Mr. Teran?
I don't have a question so much as a comment, but in my limited, albeit somewhat comprehensive experience with the zoning commission, I respect Mr. Teran, you making an argument that makes me want to agree with you. And I also have to defer to Chairperson Moore in the sense that I think philosophical disagreements on the reality may not be the time and place to make decisions like this. So I think I would defer to her, but it's not often that I go into a BZA case that I've looked at very closely and then had somebody explain it so well that I am considering strongly to change my mind. So congratulations, because I think I also agree it is a well-designed property. But I do think that there were points made on both sides here.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I hope you don't feel disheartened that we think your property is somehow not an appealing design. It certainly is, and I think you've done a good job. It's just that the issues I think that we're having challenges with are really something that you know, is an overarching BZA zoning administrator issue, and we need to get some legal clarity on it directly from them. So at this point, in order to force their hand in terms of getting that clarity, you know, yeah, first through the door kind of situation. So I move not to support BZA case 20680, you know, based on the zoning precedent concerns that we addressed, although I think we all thought the property was quite attractive and we appreciate your efforts. Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, any opposed? Any abstentions?
Abstain.
All right, thank you. And then I think I'm the next item on the agenda, so I don't want to just take over from you with my ragged voice, but I'll move to the next item, which is the resolution on supporting reproductive health rights. We did circulate this via email. It is an added item, but I think we've all seen the news. We know what's happening or potentially happening in terms of draft documents circulating at the Supreme Court on Roe v. Wade. And, you know, DC, it already has women's reproductive rights secured in our laws, but the law is quite outdated because I don't think we expect it to be here. And so there are other concerns that we need to take into account. You know, there are things going on, like even the banning of certain birth control items, like long-term birth control, for instance, like IUDs. You know, the pill didn't exist at the time when we were originally drafting the current DC laws. So we definitely need an update, and we definitely have to have a concern for the fact that, you know, given everything that's going on, COVID included, we don't necessarily want to see our healthcare system overwhelmed because of decisions that are happening at a national level. And we want to be able to, you know, continue to protect women's rights. We know that people are going to come from other states should this become more than just a draft decision. And so to be able to offer alternatives, you know, like assisted abortions with the pill, not having our healthcare workers bogged down with participating in out-of-state investigations into women that we don't even support here in the district. So it's just kind of, you know, we're doing the best that we can to try to exercise a bit of foresight here as a city. And so there's a lot of legal work going into that, and it has to be done rather quickly. So I move to support reproductive health rights for women, legislation that's currently pending before the council. Can I get a second?
Aye.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, thank you.
Perfect. Moving forward with the rest of the agenda, our final voting action is BZA case 20709 at 2002 Fenwick Street Northeast. Commissioner Rhodes, do we have those folks available?
They should be here. They was here earlier. Are you all here?
Yes. Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. I'm Alex Wilson. I'm from Sullivan and Barrows. I'm land use attorney for the project, and I'm happy to start a presentation if you all are ready. I know we're the last item and it's very late. I'm here with Nordschmann and Dave Rosenberg and Naif Issa. They're from the project team and they're developing this restaurant. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Nora in a minute, but I wanted to go over our zoning request and what we've discussed with the zoning committee and Mr. Horgan already. This property is in a PDR commercial zone. Before the project team took it over, I think it was a bar with some rooftop space, and they're looking to enclose that rooftop space to make a weatherproof indoor-outdoor dining and seating area. There are already existing structures at the rear of the rooftop. And so since we're enclosing the rooftop, it becomes a second story. And so once it's considered a second story, it triggers the need for rear yard relief, because there is a rear yard setback requirement once you get to a point 20 feet in height. Anything above that 20-foot mark requires a rear yard setback. So that's why we're here. We are asking BZA relief from the rear yard requirements in order to enclose the rest of the rooftop. And again, there are existing structures at the rear, so the request is primarily to enclose the rest of the roof. And so even though that isn't at the rear, again, it triggers the need because we have those existing rooftop structures. In terms of neighbor outreach, the directly adjacent neighbors to either side are either shut down or they're owned by the same landlord. So there are no issues with those neighbors, and there are no residential uses in the area. It's a PDR zone, so it doesn't allow most residential uses. And there shouldn't be any adverse impacts on residential properties since there aren't any. We've attempted to reach out to the neighbor behind us. She has received notice via mail. She should be aware of the project, and our contact information is available publicly in the record. We haven't had any response from her. And so again, the project team has tried to reach out when they're on site. There's never anyone in there. And I don't know if it's officially been deemed vacant. But Mr. Horgan asked that I address this because she has some solar panels on the property. And so I just wanted to clarify that there are already rear structures on our property, and this proposed construction should not have any impact on that because there are, yes, this is a better view of it. Can you circle where those rear structures are? Right. So the property is on Oakey, the one with the solar panels. It's to the west of us. And so there are already existing structures on the rear. And the relief we're requesting is just to enclose the rest of the rooftop. So it shouldn't have any further impacts. We're not adjusting those rear structures. You know, we're happy to continue to reach out to that neighbor. And we're happy to put something in the record that makes that more clear. I just wanted to address it before we go into the plans. So with that, I'll turn it over to Noor to walk through the proposal for the restaurant.
Sounds good. Thank you, Alex. Appreciate it. And thank you, everybody, for your time. I know we're running behind schedule, so I'll kind of make it short and sweet. My name is Noor. I'm one of the managing partners for Vera. Thank you again for your time. We'll use the next couple of minutes just to go through the presentation to explain what the project is, who we are, and what we're trying to achieve here in Ivy City. So at a high level, I guess, many of us on the team are either immigrants ourselves or descendant of immigrants from the Mediterranean primarily. So one of the things that we are very proud of is our food and sense of hospitality. So it was, I guess, only natural for us as a group to dig deep into our roots and find how our families immigrated to the U.S., but also to better understand how our culture kind of impacted the communities we live in today. So among many things, we learned that the first Mediterranean immigrants to the Americas actually landed in a Mexican city called Veracruz. And that's what kind of, that's how we came up with the name, because some of these immigrants brought with them some unique spices and ingredients. And we realized that a lot of, some of the Mexican recipes today have roots halfway around the world and have been tweaked and changed to accommodate these new flavors. So we thought that this was a nice story to tell, and it's worth telling, and that's how kind of Vera Cucina and Bar was born. So to tell the story, I think we assembled a strong team with a long history in the food and beverage industry in the DMV area. I'll start by introducing Nave, who's the lead and basically the creator of this project. He has a lot of experience and a lot of successful ventures in this space under his belt, and has a big following and crowd of young professionals that will be excited to join him in Ivy City when we open our doors. Then we have Fadi, who's our very own CPA and bookkeeper, who's also very familiar with the industry. Scott is a tenured and experienced entrepreneur who owns some of the more famous restaurants in the city. He also brings a lot of marketing experience to the team. And then David, who is also on the call, he's our architect. He has his name on a few notable projects in the city as well. And then we have Mazen, who couldn't be on the call, but he's our construction manager, who's been essential in getting this off the ground. He's been in the construction industry for a very long time, and he manages all of our contractors. And then finally, myself, I'm the project manager and coordinator that basically keeps everyone in line. And then I want to point out that we are actually working with designers out of Mexico City to complement our authentic Mexican and Mediterranean cuisine with a design that really sheds light on our on some of the inspirations that you're seeing here. So we're really trying to shed light on some of these things, like, for example, tiles that are commonly used in the Mediterranean, and then hanging gardens and ropes, trying to keep an islander kind of vibe in the restaurant. We already talked about the plat, but this is a floor plan of the restaurant on the ground, on the first floor. This is the second floor. And these are some of the elevations. And I'm happy to jump into any of them for any questions or comments. This is how it will look from Fenwick Street, and this is the Oakey Street side. And what Alex was talking about is basically right here. It's on the rear end, but we're not changing the height on these. So that's pretty much it, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Just need to mention before anything else from the commission, I have to abstain from voting on this project in any way. I've worked with or for some of the people associated with this project, as anyone associated with food and beverage probably has, but so I can't vote on this.
So thank you.
Thank you for clarifying that. Can y'all reiterate what kind of establishment this is? I'm confused whether it's Mexican or Mediterranean.
Yeah.
You listed some names, but none of them looked to appear to be Mexican American of any kind.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is going to be a Mediterranean Mexican cuisine. So the concept is a restaurant, and we are actually working with our chef, who I don't think we don't have the liberty of sharing his name right now because he's still working in another establishment, but he's of Latin descent. And then our front of the house operator is also of Latin descent. And the idea is to kind of have this fusion of Mediterranean and Mexican cuisine and present it in a kind of like a third, like we're not trying to present it in a very Mexican or Mediterranean. We're trying to create a third kind of fusion. Yeah, basically. So that's the idea. But yeah, the concept is going to be a restaurant, and there will be we'll be providing some of that fusion cuisine.
I have a question. The part on the roof that you're adding is going to be slightly higher than the existing part that's in the back. So it's still going to block some of the solar on that that building, the warehouse. And I just want to know, do y'all plan on getting a solar analysis, solar sun analysis, or whatever?
Has a sun study been done, or is that in the works?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
Go
Nor,
ahead,
can you
Alex.
pull it back up again?
Yeah.
I just want to, just so everyone can understand, the portion that's going higher than is there now is towards the front of the building. So the existing part right there, that's already there. So there's not, we're not going any higher in the back along, but we're happy to put something in the record that shows the relationship between the solar panels and where they sit height wise and where our building does. I'm sorry that we didn't have a picture. It might just not be as clear, but there shouldn't be any impact from that because of where it's situated. And so we're happy to put something in the record.
I would appreciate it if you get that analysis done, have it put in the record before your BZA case on the 8th. Also, the addition on the top is that, because there's a whole, and I talked to Nate about it last year, there's a whole community over here. Is this area that's on the top of the building soundproof?
Yes, we're making sure that we have acoustic. I mean, Dave can also speak to that, but we're actually working with Dave, who's an expert on that, because
very important to us. Very important.
Thank you.
Inside and outside.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Because you'll be competing with the smokehouse and the city winery, and
I think there's a Mexican restaurant across the street. No.
I think they closed.
Yeah.
They closed recently.
There's not much across the street anymore.
They were expensive. I'm not surprised.
Fortunately.
Okay.
Yeah, if you can do that analysis and put it in a case before your June, have it on a record before the June 8th, before your June 8th case, that will be greatly appreciated.
Okay.
Yeah, you can do that.
Perfect. Does anyone else from the commission have any questions or comments on this project? I don't see anything in the Q&A, no public questions or comments. Okay. Chairwoman, how do we proceed from here?
If Commissioner Rhodes wants to make a motion, either in support or against.
Yeah, I'll make a motion on the condition that we have the solar analysis on the public record before your June 8th BZA case. I make a motion that we move forward with the construction or with the project.
That we support the BZA
We support the BZA case. Thank you, Chair.
I second that motion. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those that oppose? Any abstentions?
Abstain.
Okay, ayes have it. Thank you.
Thank you all so much. Have a good night.
Thank you. Thanks, Alex.
Thanks.
So everyone, we made it to our final portion of the agenda, which is community feedback and questions. We already went through our Smd reports early in the meeting for those that attended off the bat. And if there's any questions from the public, now's your time to ask. Chairwoman Moore, I don't know if you had anything to add since you missed our moment to share about our SMDs.
I won't add anything. I won't hold this up.
I don't see anything in the chat. I don't see anything in the Q&A. I apologize if I missed anyone's questions in the chat. I was looking at the Q&A tonight. With that being said, I move that we adjourn this meeting. Can I get a second?
Aye.
Second.
Second. Sorry.
Okay, I heard that one. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, the ayes have it. Everyone have a great rest of your night. Thank you for lasting this long and be safe.
Thank you.